Here we go. And my doggy's gonna bark through all of it.
Yeah.
I'll have to let him in. Okay. Okay, I believe we're live. And we are going to be showing a clip from C-SPAN, election integrity hearings, and I'm going to be reading a little bit of a letter also from introduced in that hearing, I guess. Sorry. Okay, so I think I will just start with a little bit of this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to start with this clip. So that it's self-explanatory, but and then I'll get into. There were 4 letters I get. This has been an ongoing thing that it's Democrats and Republican. I believe it was started by William Hurd. They're basically requesting the evidence about the Russian hacking from DHS, and they haven't been getting, I guess, what they've been asking for. But this, okay, let me just play this clip here. Start with that. One sec. And I have a couple of clips, but this one just really struck me as just unbelievable. That shouldn't our news media be picking apart C-SPAN and showing us these things?
Right.
Seems like they should be. Okay. So here we go. Hopefully we have a good view here. Okay. All right. Here we go.
The gentleman from Missouri is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Krabs, I'd like to discuss some documents about Russian attacks on state election systems in 2016. Documents that DHS and the administration have refused to provide to this committee. You are familiar with an October 2017 letter to DHS requesting these documents from Ranking Member Cummings and Subcommittee Ranking Member Kelly, correct?
Yes, sir. In fact, I reviewed that letter this morning. Yes, sir.
And you are familiar with the official questions for the record requesting these documents, accompanied by a letter signed by IT Subcommittee Chair Will Hurd, following your testimony at the joint subcommittee hearing last fall. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, back in late January, all Oversight Committee Democrats wrote to Chairman Gowdy seeking a subpoena for these documents. We were ignored. Ranking Member Cummings, along with ranking members of 5 other House committees, wrote to Speaker Ryan asking for his assistance in obtaining these documents. They were ignored. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent that these 4 letters be made part of the official record for today's hearing.
Without objection.
Thank you, sir. Now, Mr. Krabs, back at that November hearing, you stated, and I quote, "If you'll permit me to go back, and I commit to you that we will have a more fulsome answer for you." On February the 6th, 2018, DHS provided approximately 50 pages of documents, most of which were already publicly available. The production did not include any classified documents, nor did it include documents about the precise nature of these attacks. the number of times these states were targeted or when they were targeted. And this has been 8 months. That is not a mere fulsome answer to our request. It is just more documents that we did not ask for and that do not answer our questions. Why are you withholding from Congress documents about how Russia attacked our state?
Sir, I don't believe I'm withholding any information. I need to go back and review the answers that we provided to those letters. It has always been my commitment to approach this manner in a bipartisan manner or a nonpartisan manner. In fact, because I see this as a matter of American security, national security. So if you'll permit me, I'd like to go back and look at the answers and also the range of briefings. As I understand with my staff, we provided close to 30, if not more, classified and unclassified briefings. I personally participated in the House-wide classified briefing earlier this summer, late spring, and provided information on what we were doing and what we saw. So, if you're not satisfied with the information, certainly we can go back and look at what we had provided previously.
Well, we are asking what you at the Department of Homeland Security determined about exactly what the Russians, how they attacked us.
Yes, sir, and I think that information is in the intelligence assessment, the intelligence community assessment. The unclassified version provides a significant amount of detail. I mean, the catch here is that on the classified side, in terms of the tactics and techniques that they used against our state networks, it's not highly classified information. It is technical. In fact, I think the recent indictments provide additional information. So,
well, how about you initiating the interagency process to obtain clearance to give us these documents? Can you do that?
Sir, I will once again commit to you that we'll go back and take a look at this and make sure you get what you need.
You know, in fact, we learned more about what happened in Illinois from reading Special Counsel Mueller's indictment of the 12 Russian intelligence officers than we have received from you. We are just asking for some cooperation here and for you to actually share with us what you know. That's our function, as Mr. Lynch said. We have the oversight function and we really need some cooperation. Mr. Hurd signed a letter asking for these documents. I will yield. Well, I don't have time to yield to him now, but thank you anyway.
You timed that out perfectly.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if any of that, it's kind of, it's very out of context if you hadn't heard about this. Let me find this letter really quickly. Okay. So, let's see. They started this committee, I think it's led by William Hurd. It started in October, and they've been asking DHS for the information, the evidence, the proof, and they're just not giving it to them, as you heard there. So this, let's see, this letter, I think they're including whatever he just turned in. That was the fourth letter. The one I'm looking at here is from January 29th, and it says, Dear Mr. Chairman, to Trey Gowdy, we are writing to request that you issue a subpoena to finally compel the Department of Homeland Security to produce documents it has been withholding from Congress for months relating to Russian government-backed efforts to monitor, penetrate, and otherwise hack at least 21 state election systems in 2016. So it just goes on. I'm going to read the whole thing, but actually I'll see if I can post it. I'll post it on YouTube. But okay, so I have a couple more clips here. It's all from the same hearing. One sec. But to learn this, like, well, why are they not giving them that information? It's just puzzling. Anyone want to comment? Has anyone seen that before?
I think at this point, for DHS to continue to withhold information that that Congress has been requesting for months now, I think it speaks for itself. If there was evidence, they would have presented it by now.
Well, at the very end, I'll save this other clip, I guess, for last. But Trey Gowdy says some stuff at the end of this hearing, basically kind of saying like, oh, you know, why some things have to be kept secret and why they, yeah, and it's kind of weird. Hang on, let me find this. All right, let me play the next one. Okay. Hate to just sit here and play clips, but they're in little 5-minute bites because I went through and watched almost 3 hours of this and just picked out some that I thought were really, you know, kind of made me wonder what was going on. Okay, so this one is a clip from Paul Mitchell of Michigan. I believe he is a Republican. So anyway, I'll just play a couple of these clips and then maybe we can discuss whatever anybody thinks about it. Okay, here we go. One sec.
He yields back to the gentleman from Michigan to recognize. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a hearing. I'm concerned about some members of the committee talk about how there's been no hearings on this. With Mr. Hurd, we had a hearing on the 2016 election where we had a number of people from the elections folks come in and asked them very specifically, was there any evidence that the votes in the 2016 election were altered? We had multiple states there, not one. Not at a federal level reporting, not at the state level, indicated that votes were in any manner altered. There's no quarrel that outside entities, including Russia, attempted to interfere with our election. Conflating the two gets in the way of doing the job we're trying to do here, which is identify the resources we need to protect the integrity of that system. But I'm appalled at the ongoing conflating of those two, and suddenly the world has come to an end. Let me ask you a question, Mr. Hicks. You're aware of the amounts of money put through the states to assist them in their elections. I've got Michigan's. Michigan received $11.242 million to upgrade their systems. All of their voting machines will be replaced by the August primary, to August 2018. Have you received any further requests from Michigan for funding or support beyond that, sir?
I am not aware of any funding, any other additional requests from Michigan beyond the request from the 300.
So Michigan has not raised a major crisis that our election system in Michigan is suddenly about to come down around our ears at this point?
I'm not aware of any.
I didn't think so. I've talked to the Secretary of State there and know them well. Are you aware, sir, of the review of the City of Detroit's administration 2016 general election?
I am not.
Let me give you some data on that. 392 precincts in the city of Detroit were out of balance. 26% of them, in terms of absentee ballot voting, could not be verified. One Detroit precinct was found to be missing over 250 ballots. They made 6 recommendations. All of them relate to training and staffing of the precincts. Not one, not a single recommendation related to either the voter registration file, electronic records, or the actual ballots, the actual voting. How are we going to support that, given the fact that despite the concerns that some of my colleagues have that the Russians are coming, the majority of the mistakes that are happening are human errors that just multiply and they fail to reconcile. The city of Detroit, if there was a recount in Michigan, by the way, the president won by like 12,000 votes, the city of Detroit could not sustain an audit. It could not sustain a recount because of these problems. How do we support that?
The EAC remains focused, laser focused on all aspects of elections, whether or not that's voter registration, whether or not that's voting equipment, whether or not that's poll worker training, whether or not that's election night reporting. There are about 8,000 jurisdictions across the country, and each jurisdiction has different aspects of it, and we try our best to help each and every one of those jurisdictions function well with the administration of elections through the federal process.
do you have a current need for additional resources to support training, personnel systems for voting, and what would that be?
I don't have a specific number, but there's always need for additional resources. States are very tied to the fact that they have other things that they focus in on, whether or not that's roads, schools, police, and so forth. Elections is usually looked at as the last. As Mr. Hatch talked about, there are additional ways that Congress can look at providing additional funding to the states.
Yeah, okay. Ms. Oliver, let's switch it because you're nodding your head. However, we still want to maintain a system that, in fact, is a state. Our elections are state and local, and not a federal election system. I don't think we want to federalize them. Do you?
No, sir. And speaking on behalf of NAS, the secretaries of state nationally don't have a position on this issue. Speaking for myself personally, my experience in New Mexico, a state which has truly suffered ever since the economic decline, we can always use more funding. And I personally view conducting our federal, state, and local elections together on one ballot as a partnership. States have always had skin in the game on this issue. We've been doing all the election security work. We would love to have more resources in that regard, from my perspective.
Has your group identified what those resources would be?
Certainly we can provide you a list, but I agree with you. I think not only do we need to make sure we have the resources to protect in terms of cybersecurity, but we also we have continuing and ongoing needs with regard to training, with regard to resourcing in other ways. So happy to provide you any details you would like.
Thank you. I think any feedback you would have would be appreciated by the committee, but ask that you provide that. At this point in time, we haven't had any overwhelming requests. We certainly want to support that partnership. And I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so I don't know about you guys, but I hear that as here we have all these other problems. We don't have enough. We're running out of ballots. We don't have people that are trained properly. And, all this money is being sent, but it's not fixing anything. And it just,
right.
That's what I...
My favorite example is our election system is so out in the open. Myself and two of my children were left alone in the Ogle County place with the master voting machines, where tickets were ran through for people that couldn't get out to vote at their other precincts. They left us alone for a half hour while they went to go to lunch with all the machines.
What did you do, Snort?
I didn't do anything. I should have. But I mean, that to me, that was a major security flaw. They didn't ask if I was a programmer or if I had any capabilities programming any machines or anything. Just sit right there. I think they were the only free chairs in the building. But again, and to me, I need to go back and see what these 31 states are. Are these the 31 states that Hillary lost?
They're saying 21. And really, this is a lot of information. And again, I'll just say this is where our news media is failing, because instead of all these endless, stupid, whatever discussions they have that are opinion, they should be reporting on all this stuff and making sense of it. There's hours and hours of C-SPAN. This is just one hearing. It was almost 3 hours that I sat through and picked a couple clips out of. But trying to make sense of, Krebs goes into explaining some system called Albert that is something, hang on, I can explain it better. I've got like 50 tabs open on my laptop, hold on. Albert is some system that was on those 21 states systems that apparently captured that something was trying to scan. We had that whole debate about what scanning meant. Anyway, let me find the next. We're trying to do these in order that kind of make some bit of sense.
I'm sorry if I interjected at the wrong time.
No, please do, because really I'm still trying to piece this together. It's so much time, especially when you get into the IT security side of it. I mean, for someone like me, I don't understand it all. Maybe Brian, you can explain it a little better, or understand when they start getting into the weeds with it, what it all means. But you just kind of left going, well, how is anybody supposed to know what's real or what, what to trust? Okay, so this next one is, again, it's another, I've got, let's see, this is another 5-minute clip. This is another woman, oh, I didn't write down her name, asking the same thing from DHS, the information, basically. So let me pull this up again. Hope this isn't too boring. I think it's fascinating. It's just trying to make sense of it all. Okay, here we go. There we go. All right, Miss Norton. I believe she's in Maryland. Let's see what she says.
Bills back. The gentlelady from the District of Columbia is recognized.
DC. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It may not be enough, but it certainly is important to have this hearing. And Mr. Krebs, I want to ask a series of questions to clarify how the Russians got so proficient at what they do. Can I ask you whether it is true, as I believe the President has implied, that the United States also engages in hacking or trying to get into the election systems of other countries?
Ma'am, I have no information on that. My job is to help folks like Mr. Hatch and Secretary Toulouse Oliver protect their systems. I'm a defensive Homeland Security, Homeland Defense operation.
So you don't have any information that would indicate that the tit-for-tat kind of, as we do, for example, in spying, also goes on with respect to hacking into the election systems of other countries?
Ma'am, I do not in any official capacity. No, ma'am.
Mr. Krebs, you testified before the House Committee on Homeland Security, and I'm interested because I want to know how the Russians got to be such expert at this. You used words I didn't understand. You said the Russians had, quote, scanned all 50 states. Then you said 21 you were not able to see. What is scanning? What does it mean that they scanned all 50 states?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the question. So if I can back up a little bit, what we have historically said, dating back to last summer, was that we had, based on network visibility, so it's sensors that were on state networks that were using DHS indicators of Russian activity, we were able to determine 21 states were scanned. What, in some senses...
Meaning scanning, meaning what?
So scanning can be a number of things. In one sense, it could literally be a Russian officer getting on his computer in Moscow or elsewhere and visiting a county or state system. Just browsing, going through whatever his research or his search engine is of choice.
Now you saw 50... You say they scanned 50, but you were able to see only 21. So why weren't you able to see? You certainly it was all 50, but you have your own information on only 21.
Yes, ma'am. So in my written in my opening, I reference something called an Albert sensor. An Albert sensor is a network detection. It's an IPS. I'm sorry. Intrusion detection system. What it does is it sits on a network and it looks for certain traffic IP addresses. So an actual internet connected device somewhere else trying to either come in or go out of that system.
So you were able to see for 21 states, but not all 50, but just see all 50.
So we assume, because we only saw 21, and given the fact that we only saw 21 because that's where we had our Albert sensors deployed, we were able to see those 21. I did not have visibility over the rest of the states. Now, since February of this year, we have quadrupled our visibility. So when we come up to 2018 in the midterms, ma'am, I suspect we'll have closer to all 50 states.
So Albert sensors will be
Yes, ma'am.
used for all 50
In Congress for that. That was in the FY18 omnibus. We were provided additional funds to purchase.
Was there anything that the Russians seem to be more interested in, seem to be targeting more than other things? Were they just looking at the system to see what they could find? I mean, could you give us some information?
I do believe that to a certain extent they were performing reconnaissance. They were trying to figure out where they had landed and what sort of functionality the systems had. And it's important to note that what they were able to see or scan, and in one case access a system of a voter registration database, that was all on the administration side. That was on the kind of information management side. It wasn't in the vote tallying or vote counting.
So what do you think they ultimately want to do after scanning? What are they looking to do?
It's hard to tell based on their demonstrated capability. We do know that they attempted to interfere in the overarching election, that they intended to interfere in the election.
And did so. Thank you very much, Mr. Krebs.
Gentlelady from the district.
Okay, so do you guys remember, actually I don't have the clip pulled up where Krebs is talking about scanning and he explains it, that it's basically not anything, it's just routine stuff. But I just noticed how here he's saying, well, it could be somebody in Moscow doing this.
But they have no evidence of that.
I don't see how it's different from MSN or and Google's nightly spider scans.
That's what he explains at another. Actually, let me see if I can find that really quickly.
Now, what is a nightly spider scan?
Yeah.
Well, that's where they go out and they test everybody's web pages to see what information they can index against. So when you do a Google search, the spiders are what feed the Google searches. They get information free to make these searches quicker.
Right.
And they're done at night so that they don't interfere with any actual service. It's a matter of just pulling the data and making it essentially sync up with their systems.
He just looks at the site, sees what files there are, goes away.
One thing that strikes me about everything I've ever heard about Russian interference is they say that Russia has attempted to interfere with the elections. They never say they have interfered with the election. They never say what damage they have done by interfering, by that. Does this, the fact that they can get into the system, does this mean that they can go in and they can change voter rolls, or they can find ways to change the election results? Is there any proof of that? Is there any, or can that happen, based on what they've been able to access? I don't know. And it seems like to me they haven't really determined very much along that line. Is actually
it sounds like that's what this hearing is trying to ascertain. It sounds like that's what they're trying to figure out here through this hearing, is what exactly Russia did during the 2016 election. And from what it sounds like, I mean, just the exchange between Krebs and I can't remember the first guy's name, but it sounds like there isn't any.
They just go in and look around, and they haven't changed anything or had any really interference with the process or whatever. So, have they really interfered with the elections? No. At this point now in 2018, are they going to be able to have some capability to do so? That's a different question,
Well, I found it. So I want to play this back to back to what we just heard. But I feel like in response to what you just said, Rich, is that when he says, well, we do know that Russia interfered with the election, at that point he's conflating, he's talking about the Facebook ads and stuff. He's not referring to anything, electronic hacking. He's just putting that in there so that people assume. It's really misleading, I think.
It's very misleading.
He's talking about a marketing effort on the behalf of by Russia to interfere with people's attitudes about candidates.
Right, but
so
you probably know, you've heard that they determined that those ads that were on Facebook, that half of them were not even seen until after the election. Had you heard that?
I have heard that, yes.
Yeah. So I personally think it's absurd, and I think that woman in Florida responding to this CNN guy, what's his name, Drew somebody, where he walks up to her outside of her house. I'll play that clip too. It's great. And he's saying, like, your group was, infiltrated by Russians. And she's like, what? What are you talking about? It's really funny. But okay, I want to play this because here's Krebs only, let's see, November, I think. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, I think this is from November. And this is where he's talking about the scanning, what he just described a minute ago.
Right, and what scanning actually is.
Yeah, and here's where he describes it. Well, hang on. What happened? Hold on a second. Oh, maybe it's... Uh-oh. Something happened. Hang on. I thought I had the right clip up. Just a sec. Maybe it's further into this. Oh, here it is. Okay. We'll just have to tolerate a little bit longer section. And this guy, this Yahoo, is somebody that keeps talking about Acorn. So we'll ignore that. But, yeah. Okay.
Issues like the FBI authorities, my authorities to meet with private sector companies and build awareness and
Sorry.
resilience within the
Just
system.
a sec.
It looks like it's the last tab on the right that's still playing.
I know. Sorry. Like I said, I've got like 80 tabs open on my laptop. Hold on. That's what happened. Okay. Let me go back. Sorry. High tech here. All right.
Hello.
Hi. How are
Hey,
you?
Ellis.
Hello, everyone.
So you, were you watching any before? We're watching C-SPAN clips.
Sorry, I hadn't. I just noticed the invite.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay. We're doing what most people do for fun on a Saturday night. We're watching C-SPAN clips.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Okay, hang on. Let me get this right this time. I have too many tabs. Okay. Make sure I have the right one now. I think I do. Okay. Or do I? No, I don't. Crap. Hang on.
You got it?
No, I don't. Hold on. Okay. Somebody else talk for a minute. I've got to figure out what I just did.
Yeah, while you're looking at that,
Yeah, please.
I'm still all confused about this. To me, this is like a case of you got a closed room, you got a dead rabbit, a dog, and a lion.
Right.
And they're questioning the dog.
Right.
And the lion can't be guilty at all. So we're suspecting a thing. And face it or not, if you're trying to hack an election in another country, it's an espionage event. What are the orders of espionage? They try to do human failures first. And the technology is the last thing they want to use because they want to be not traceable. They want to bribe people. They want to do stuff like that. So here we're looking at the dog and not the lion again, or maybe we're looking at something that doesn't even have teeth instead of the lion. But again, we had the Alwyn brothers compromise the election system for 80 congressmen.
We do see control.
Right.
In person, on site, data access. Now, again, the more layers you get out in technology, the more you have to worry about somebody looking over your shoulder that might kill you. So here we have a case of they're inside the building. They've got full access. Okay, they're the lion. They're the one that we should be looking at first. Okay, what did the Alwyn brothers do? What was their connection to Debbie Wasserman Schultz? Why are 15 of the 21 of these states that are mentioned ones that fell for Clinton? If there was hacking involved, it would have been at the primary. Again, let's look at the thing of, okay, if somebody's really hacking, they're going to be looking at the onion again. They're going to be as far from the outside skin as possible to be visible. So sorry, that distracted me a bit. but they're
Sorry.
going to be far from possible. You're not going to want to hack the election. You're going to want to put two idiots in the primary. So we're looking at events that happened during the election, and we're looking in the wrong room.
Right.
We got to be looking in the room with the tiger. We need to be saying, okay, are we looking at the right scope of this? What happened during the primaries? Why did Hillary only win the states she could hack?
Right.
So, let's go back to this. If there was hacking, we had the Owan brothers connected to Wasserman Schultz, who was running Clinton's campaign. Then why aren't we looking at what transactions happened during the primaries? And forget the things. How did we get these two idiots to be in the first positions?
Right.
And okay, if I really was messing with something, that's what I would do. I wouldn't try to put them out in and I really have no espionage experience beyond James Bond movies, so I'm not claiming any expertise there. But I watched them all.
When I was a special agent in Army Intelligence for a while, got trained at Fort Hollywood, Maryland, for being a special agent. Intelligence or espionage, I know a little bit about it. I don't see what you just said was that the Clinton campaign had hacked the primary elections, and that's how you won.
Well, no. I just brought up, why aren't we investigating that, which is more feasible? Because to me, the strange circumstances of the election were collusion between the parties, one specific candidate part, so that each week we had, I don't know if you guys have seen the TV series Survivor, but we started off with 31 Republican candidates. And it was each week, who did the news go for? Bang, another person was just knocked off. No
Right.
matter what Trump said, no matter how many people he upset, it just buoyed him to the top. And it's all they talked about.
Yep.
I'll bring comebacks, as I just saw this start happening with another candidate for the next election. But stick back with the one we're on. So on the Democratic Party side, first day of Bernie Sanders' campaign, it's on record that Ed Schultz said that he had a full crew ready to say, we're going online. We're gonna show Bernie. He'd been following this guy for years, knew him well, and he was given the order, cut. At that moment, the CNN was no longer journalism; they were an operative,
Right.
Of the Democratic Party and Debbie
or whoever was controlling the Democratic Party. We don't know what level of compromise or who compromised Debbie Wasserman Schultz, correct?
Right.
We don't know that she wasn't compromised.
That is censorship of the news in favor of the Wall Street candidates, which would be Hillary and the bozo. What's his name? The orange-haired guy. The guy who's currently president, supposedly. Yeah. I mean, he was given. Got every time he did anything, it was on CNN, it was on Fox News, it was on the major networks. Every time, I mean, anything. He was on there 24 hours a day. He had billions of dollars of free advertisements.
Absolutely.
Bernie Sanders was blocked as far as his.
In fact, at another Bernie Sanders thing, they cut from him and immediately cut over to a blank chair showing where Donald Trump was going to be sitting. That's kind of a diversion. But I mean, that to me, there was a collusion between all of the networks to get the two biggest idiots up there. And
the people who own the networks, who decide what's going to be on the news, are special interests on Wall Street, and so they do block coverage that we would.
Not only special interests of the network, it's in their best interest to have you looking at the TV set every few minutes and say, "What did that idiot say now?"
Right.
Oh, right.
Well, what's happening?
As long as you're tuned in, that's why Trump was so popular, because when he went on, their ratings went up, and so they kept on adding on and on and on and on, because he did boost the ratings for
now
which he was on.
Also, I can't believe he doesn't have really intelligent people guiding his campaign. And when he would, the most suspicious thing of all to me, it was every time he got ahead and he was really trouncing Hillary, he would say something that bring the tables back to level.
Yep.
And this kept happening out through and it was like almost orchestrated.
Almost. Huh?
You know
So
what?
every time,
Only
every single time.
Yeah,
it's
Hillary
just
got
sort of-
ahead.
It was
suddenly
literally failing upwards.
Yeah, but when Hillary would get ahead, then the FBI would say something, or there'd be a release about something that she did, and these events kept going. And all along it was like the Republicans were all, you got to vote for Trump, or we're all going to lose to Hillary. And on the other side, they never considered the other components unless they laughed at them, or they had something really bad to say about anybody other than Hillary on the Democratic Party side. Yeah. Now, getting back to last Friday, 4 presidential candidates came to Iowa. Typically, this event called Wingdings kicks off the next presidential election.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And the Iowa caucuses for 2020 started last week.
No, really?
Yes, yes, at the Wingding. This is where Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, I'm trying to think what other presidential candidates all started their 2020 or their caucuses for their presidential run.
Is that Democrats and Republicans?
No, just Democrats. And Bernie Sanders spoke there last time too.
Okay, right.
So this time there was 4 candidates: Andrew Yang, Donnelly. I think it was John Donnelly. Jim Ryan, and Avenatti.
I assume Jim Ryan is Paul Ryan's estranged cousin, 3 times removed.
No, he seemed to be the most mainstream of the candidates. Avenatti,
which is why I said 3 times removed.
Avenatti was the only one CNN mentioned was there.
Avenatti, fuck that guy.
And basically, he is Stormy Daniels' lawyer, and has decided to use that to get him to go to president. And he is he's currently giving all the attention from CNN. And I haven't watched the others. I don't watch MSNBC anymore. But in their article, they mentioned that Avenatti stole the show and everything. The one that stole the show was the one they turned the cameras off for. And if you Google Iowa Wingdings, you will see them turn off the cameras when this guy comes on. His name is Andrew Yang.
Yes.
He out-Bernie's Bernie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
So I had a talk with his campaign crew before he came. I got to meet him when he was out there, and but since he has a lot to talk about how to do economy in a world with automation, and automation's my specialty. I am really good at leveraging automation to get people to work. Just one piece of automation, I could double production, and still have the full crew. I didn't have to lay off people usually, but not saying it always happened. But so I was really interested in talking to him about what we do with that, and he recognizes the economic problems. So I was very concerned sitting back by the cameras when they all turned off their cameras at the same time.
Not surprising.
Not surprising at all, but it is nonetheless concerning.
Yeah.
And this highlights why we have to get our social media outlets to cover this guy as much as they possibly fucking can, because we've got to compete directly with the mainstream media machine. We've got to, and this is the only real option we have at this point.
Covering Andrew Yang.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, what concerned me was
I had not heard of him before, So.
Well, like I say, they cut the cameras. They left the sound on. They left the sound on, but they did not want people to see their action. I'm a registered Democrat. I'm active. In fact, we have a great set of local Democratic Party candidates. It's our national that's messing up. we had a lot of candidates at our local Iowa post-mortem for the last election that complained about how the national messed up our own state candidates. We lost many state candidates because of national starving them for money. Just every bit of cash that was possible was sucked out. And but back to this thing. I've been to Bernie events and I saw the reaction of the crowd. So when I went there this time, I thought, geez, these are going to be all diehard Democrats. I just wanted to go there to talk to Andrew Yang's crew. And so I get up there, and when Yang stepped toward the stage, they just, the guy that was even just walking up to announce him, people started saying stuff, and they clipped the cameras. And then by the time Andrew Yang came up, it was a Bernie-like reception.
Nice.
And I suddenly realized that I'm not alone in this state.
That is beautiful.
Yes, if that's the truth, if what you're saying is true, Snort, then that means we actually have a chance with somebody, because Bernie, a lot of us felt, I think, that this was our last shot to Wrangley. Andrew has a lot of things going for him that Bernie did. Yes,
he does.
It's nice for once Asians actually getting represented in presidential elections.
He is not running as an Asian.
No, I know, but it's just sort of like, as personally, just for me personally, this is like one of those things of like, yes, and he's progressive, yes, he's 2 steps before socialist. Good enough.
He's a New Yorker.
Yeah, close enough.
Hey, before we get too far off that, I think I have we always meander, which is wonderful. I think I have the right clip now.
Okay.
And if I do, the funny thing is, user created clip by Max Blumenthal.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think this is it. Let me try again here. All right, screen share. Now keep in mind what he was saying about scanning, right?
Mm-hmm.
That it could be some guy in Moscow. It could be somebody on the moon. No, okay. Oh.
May have happened in the 21 states, as was mentioned over the course of the summer. The majority of the activity was simple scanning. Scanning happens all the time. It's happening right now to a number of probably your websites. Scanning is a regular activity across the web. I would not characterize that as an attack. It's a preparatory step. In terms of those scripts, there are 2 scripts. One script was provided to states that wanted additional information if they were included in that batch of 21.
So there you have it. On the one hand, it's some guy in Moscow.
On the other hand, it's nothing.
Yeah. So which is it? Just kind of makes you wonder. Okay.
Not really.
Well,
we know the source.
Yeah. And sorry, we do jump around a lot here for our millions of viewers. Snork, you said something about the media focusing on every single thing that Trump says. It just made me think of a writer that I would love to push on here. If anybody is not following C.J. Hopkins on Twitter, I highly recommend it. He is an American. I think he lives in Berlin now, but his writing is really great. It's funny. It's he wrote this article, "Year of the Headless Liberal Chicken." That was the first one that I read of his. But anyway, he had this one.
I think that year extended a little bit longer than just a year.
It did. But here's this one. It's Trump's. Let's see. Trump's treasonous traitor summit, or let's see, what is it? Or how liberals learn to stop worrying and love the new McCarthyism. But anyway, it's also it's the consentfactory.org. And it was really funny. I ended up emailing him one time. I think this was back in December, and I was really surprised that he responded. And I just told him I loved his writing and told him that we had these little discussions. And he said that he was much better on paper and he didn't like to do like video or podcasts. But anyway, I thought it was cool that he answered. But I love his writing, so I highly recommend. But anyway, it made me think of that because he was just kind of talking about how it's all this focus on the rhetoric, what Trump says. And
I mean, there is something to be said about the understanding how Trump uses rhetoric in order to divide the public. But here's the thing. Well, I think there is some use to studying it. And I certainly think that it should be something that we take into consideration in our mainstream discourse. The problem is that it's been hyper-focused to the point that it's between that and Russia, it's the only thing that gets any focus or attention. And that is not useful. Because as much as we'd like to pretend like it is the case, there's more going on in the world than Trump saying mean things and the Russians doing, well, whatever the Russians do. I don't know how exactly to put this into words in a way that's sort of sensible or particularly thoughtful. I can do it very crudely, but that's not always the most useful approach to these kinds of things.
All right, so I have 3 more clips I'd like to play if you guys are up for it. Yes, no, maybe? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this one's really interesting because it's some guy, James Raskin, and also in Maryland, and he is very upset about the fact that one of the security companies, whatever, I don't know, that have the voting machines, that somewhere in there, something is owned by a Russian company. I have, again, if I can figure out which tab that is, I'll tell you what the name of it is. But all right, I'll play the clip. And all right, here we go. One sec. Sorry. Whoops. Give me a sec. Sorry. Here we go.
Nope, you're good.
I don't have the right setup for sharing all this stuff. Okay.
I'm sure it's
I need
fine.
the screen. You know how Jimmy Dore has the screen behind him, so he can just play a clip and they're queued up and ready to go.
Well,
Yeah,
green screens are overrated.
we're not even that
Or whatever it is that Jamal Thomas does.
Oh yeah, he does do some of that too. Yeah, I should ask him when
in fact, he doesn't even have a green screen, as far as I know. It's just literally him just putting like an overlay on the side.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I really should do more of it because I can't retain all of this information in my head. I come on here and I say, this article or this clip, and it's better if you just have it and you can show it and everybody has either seen it or can see it for the first time and know what the heck you're talking about. Okay, here we go. Now I have it up, I think. There we go. Okay, Raskin is his name. Jamie Raskin. Here we go.
Option that needed to be conveyed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from Maryland, Professor Raskin.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and thank you for calling this hearing. I want to go first to Mr. Hicks, the chair of the Election Assistance Commission. As you know, I represent the 8th Congressional District in Maryland, proudly. Your offices happen to be in my district, so I follow your work closely. In Maryland, we were notified just a couple of weeks ago by the FBI that the private vendor that our state uses for purposes of election administration management of our voter registration database has close ties to a Russian oligarch connected to Vladimir Putin. This bizarre revelation, perhaps a coincidence, perhaps not, has raised profound questions about the potential for interference in our elections by compromised private election vendors due to the extraordinary lack of regulation on how election vendors do their business. So I wanted to ask you several questions about this to see how far this problem may indeed go. After this revelation about ties to a Russian oligarch of our election vendor in Maryland, has there been any way for you to determine what other states may be using this vendor or other vendors who have ties to Vladimir Putin and his oligarchs?
That's an ongoing investigation, and the EAC does not have the wherewithal to comment on that right now. I would defer to my colleague at DHS to talk a little bit more about that.
Well, okay, I don't have too much time, but Mr. Krebs, let me ask you, is there an ongoing investigation at the Department of Homeland Security about whether there's some kind of systematic plot by Russia to exercise influence over private election vendors?
So we are looking in specific to the Maryland case, and thank you for your letter on that front. This is actually one of those stories of progress. When the State Board of Election in Maryland was notified that there was a connection, they immediately reached out to us and asked for help, and we have deployed that assistance. So we are making progress here. Again, those relationships did not exist yet.
Okay, I mean, forgive me for my sense of urgency, but we have an election in, I think it's 107 days, maybe it's 108 days at this point. It is right around the corner, and so it doesn't give me a lot of comfort to learn that there's progress being made. So have you determined that there are any other states whose election vendors have been compromised by connections to Russian oligarchs or Vladimir Putin?
This is a broader supply chain conversation. We do know that in the case of Maryland, that there, at least according to the information I've seen, there was no ability to influence based on that venture capital firm. But we are conducting a broader assessment of the risk environment.
When do you expect to have the results of this investigation? Is ongoing?
I assume that this investigation, because of the nature of procurement cycles, will be ongoing, and frankly will never end. As we develop more information, we'll act on it.
Okay, but Mr. Krebs, forgive me.
Convenient.
Are there states who have election vendors today that are running elections in November who have ties to Russian oligarchs or the Putin government?
Sir, at this point, I don't have information to share on that.
Is there anyone at the Department of Homeland Security who does have that information?
Sir, I do not. I'd have to defer actually to the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Okay, is there anyone in the panel who knows how many states are currently contracting with private election vendors who are using foreign-made parts or foreign software in their election day products? No one can tell us, okay. Mr. Hicks,
this is a broader...
I got you. Are vendors currently required by federal law to adhere to cybersecurity best practices or to report to the EAC in the event that there's some breach of cybersecurity?
No.
Are vendors uniformly required to report any cyber threats to you?
Uniformly, no, because it's a voluntary system.
All right. As I thought, I thank you all for your answers, but they demonstrate why I've introduced H.R. 6435, the Election Vendor Security Act of 2018, which requires election vendors to be owned and controlled only by citizens or permanent residents of the United States, to adhere to cybersecurity best practices, and to report all known or suspected cybersecurity breaches or threats to state and federal authorities immediately. I would urge all of my colleagues on both sides of the aisle in this committee to join me in this effort to protect the integrity of our election processes in 2018. This is something that needs to be done right now. And this is not something that can be put off to another day. It's not something that can be postponed. And we cannot be satisfied with vague promises of ongoing progress and investigation. This is a democratic emergency. The elections go right to the heart of democratic self-government.
Okie dokie.
Just like, what a fucking much to do about fucking nothing. You do like, does this person realize how difficult these kinds of investigations are actually to prove? Because first off, fuck, my head is just like, fuck.
Okay, so this company, hang on a second. Let me search through my mini tabs here.
Like, is there something I'm missing in this?
hang on, I'm trying to find the name of that company. Because
well, there's a lot missing in it, but I don't think you're missing anything.
It's not like I substantively disagree with anything that was said in this, either by Mr. Rankin or the person from Homeland Security that he was just talking to. But at the same time, it just feels like this is a whole lot of panic over something that A, has not yet necessarily been confirmed, B,
the funniest,
I lost my B.
the funniest thing about, to me, well, you start to try to find humor after 3 hours of C-SPAN, is that most of it's really boring and dry, and people are just droning on. And there was literally in one part, there's a guy, I don't know who he was, but asleep behind the person, or at least, I mean, very much looked like it. You know, it was like this, right? Yeah. But then you have the ones that are obviously like they're putting on a performance for the camera. There was a guy, I can't remember his name, from Massachusetts. A whole lot of grandstanding, and it's just like, So I don't know. I felt like there was a little bit of that from that guy. But I mean, yeah, we do need to know like who these the vendors are, the companies that are providing the voting machines. That's a huge ip. But where is all the emphasis put on what the guy from Michigan was saying? That we don't have people trained. We're having to give out provisional ballots. You know, all this ridiculous amount of money. When you hear this, if you listen to the whole 3 hours, and the numbers that they're talking about sending these states just for where's that money really going? You know,
it's nuts.
Yeah, it really is. So, okay.
And when you break this down, what it comes down to is that you've got the DNC and Hillary's campaign scrambling to come up with a narrative that essentially lets her off the hook for losing to Trump. So in other words, instead of taking responsibility for the fact that she was a horrible candidate and shouldn't have run in the first place, they're going to create a situation that could cost us getting back into another Cold War. I mean, think about how absurd that is. In order to create a narrative that ends up basically whitewashing the fact that Hillary shouldn't have ran in the first place, they're going to create a situation that could get us into a conflict with Russia?
Okay, first, no, I totally agree. No, look, I for one am not going to be the one to say that Hillary Clinton should never have run. That is fully within her right and choice to do so. However, I would say that you're fully within your right to run if you wish. I am never going to say you shouldn't run, because that gets into a whole lot of anti-democratic arguments that I really dislike. However, I will say this: if you are going to run, don't fucking cheat in the middle and then expect people to vote for you.
Right.
Like I think that's fair. You can run. Just don't fucking cheat. And the fact that and the whole problem with this is that you've got a confirmed cheater accusing somebody else of cheating, while both of them are trying to get dirt from each other from the same fucking source.
The whole thing is absurd because all you have to do, one of the best things I've seen yet, well, I'm always talking about Thomas Frank, right? And his message in Listen Liberal. But look up, just Google on YouTube, or look up on YouTube, Thomas Frank and Robert Scheer, who is the editor of Truth Dig. And they had this conversation in some, just some some room in some building in Philly, DNC week, I think it was. And it's about, I think, an hour-long conversation. And I should post that too. I'll retweet it. I've sent it out a couple of times. But they have this conversation about the Clintons and about the history, you know, the last 30 years in this country and how neoliberalism gave rise to Trump, and they just have this in-depth conversation about, you know, what really happened. That's why Trump won. None of this nonsense. It's so ridiculous.
Right.
It's not any of this stuff. It's not Russia.
Obama's policies left an enormous swath of the country completely and utterly untouched. They got no benefit at all from his policies. So, of course, they were disgruntled and pissed off. And they went with the guy who I mean, yeah, he was a little unhinged, but sounded like he was going to upset the apple cart. So they voted for him.
Right.
Yeah. Okay,
that's what gave rise to Trump.
I found it, and it's about
that and a bunch of paranoid white upper middle class white people paranoid that they were about to lose their own savings, all their poorer brethren did.
Mm-hmm. So I found this. It's about a 45-minute long conversation. I don't know where to put it. I guess
can I say something about?
Yeah, jump in.
Anybody be allowed to run for any office they want to. The one thing about the Clintons is that they have millions and millions of dollars in backing from Wall Street and from et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that we need is a equal political speech amendment, which is something which I wrote up, which has to do with move to amend. And I have a third section in there that says that if you cannot vote in the election, you cannot contribute to a candidate. And that includes et cetera. And it also would exclude political parties from donating money to candidates. So the Democrats and Republicans would be out of it. The only person that could put money into a candidate's campaign would be the people on the screen, people who can vote in an election, but they cannot vote. They can't put money into a congressional candidate who's in another state or another part of their state. They can only contribute to their congressional candidate. They can only contribute to their state senator or their House representative in their state. And there's no outside money in politics that way. If you can't vote in the election, you cannot contribute money. So that's all campaigns would be run on money of voters who can vote in that election. And so that would, Ross Perot would have been up the creek without a paddle, because he couldn't have run in 1992 because he put $82 million of his own money into the campaign. Mm-hmm. So, but if he had the support and the backing of the American people, then he could have done like Bernie Sanders did. Who raised a lot of money on $27 average campaign contribution. That's what politics should be, is what Bernie did in 2016. The people, he ran on money that came from voters, and that's what he ran on. That's what we should have all over the country in every election. So I don't think Hillary should have been. I don't think anybody should be allowed to run because they want to. And they should not be able to bring their own money. And this, in fact, it mentions that a person who can only contribute whatever limits there are on anybody else to their own campaign. If there's a $2,700 limit on donating to a congressional campaign, then the person running for that seat cannot donate any more than anybody else can. $2,700, and the rest of your money doesn't go in. You can't put $3 million into a campaign like so many people do in California, New York, or wherever. They put in $2 or $3 million of their own money and hope to recoup it at some point in time, and they will if they get elected, because they can make money, a lot of money, by by being in Congress. So.
Right.
But I just want to make a point that we should have a system where candidates should not be able to run just because they want to. They have to have support of the American people or voters in their district, wherever they are. And there's an amendment on my congressional cabinet website that has that language. If we could get that amendment passed, we would take care of the money and politics problem. And move to amend does not quite take care of it, because it leaves it sort of open.
So I think Aeolus, you and Snork, you guys met Rich last time, didn't you? Or a couple times ago?
Well, I don't know if I was here last time Rich was on.
A couple of times ago.
I think.
Yeah.
I tend to talk too much, and I apologize.
No, you
No,
don't.
no.
Not at all. I was gonna say, I mean, I have so much respect for all the work you've done already for 30 years, and
20, 25, maybe.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
25. Okay.
Don't make me old, man.
Okay. Sorry. Well, respect your elders. And we should listen. We should listen to them too. So, I think it would be great to do a kind of a regular segment. Honestly, if you want to talk about what you're working on with your. I love the idea of the independent voter, what was it? The magazine that you were.
Oh yeah. The Populist Independent.
Yeah, Populist Independent.
That'd be a name of a magazine. It could be for it maybe could be a sort of an Oregon magazine for the Independent Voters Alliance for based on populism. Because that's it's about voters. It's not about organizations or parties or whatever.
Right.
About independence. And
right.
populism.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's where things are going now. So
yeah, the Independent Voter Network, which is Jackie Sallert out of New York, and all that IVN, see that, and they put out a lot of stuff. They've been doing the independent thing for the last 30 years, but you go to a national meeting in New York City, which has 8 million people. You go into their meeting, they have 400 people there out of 330 million Americans. Now, hell, if there's something wrong there, they should have maybe 10,000 people at that meeting. I mean, hell, it's New York City. I mean, that would be like 1/10,000th of 1% of the people in New York City would be 10,000 people at their meeting. But can they attract that many people? Apparently not, because the meetings are anywhere from 400 to 600 people nationwide. So I've been to several of those. And she had and her magazine was the Neo-Independent, the Politics of Becoming. Which
I noticed what you said about the neo.
There's nothing new about the independent majority. That's been there forever. There's nothing. Independents are in charge of this country. They just don't know it yet, because most people are independents.
Right.
Yeah. So the premise for their magazine was sort of wrong, because it's the neo-independent. There's nothing new about being independent. It's something that's been there forever. It's not becoming. We have been there, waiting to have some way to organize and to take over politics, and so people, the 66% don't vote. They don't vote for a reason, because they don't have anybody to represent them in the two parties.
Okay, I've got another clip. It's actually 2 back-to-back, so this one is a little bit longer if anybody's in the mood. So there's this one, and then there's the ending where Trey Gowdy says some interesting things about how some things just need to be kept private, which I don't know about that.
Trey Gowdy, he's an interesting guy.
Do what?
Trey Gowdy, is that his name?
Yeah. No, hang on a second.
That is a cavalcade of mixed opinions right there.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. 1 sec. All right.
Sarbanes, New York.
More C-SPAN.
Thank you. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Krebs, did you say that you mentioned something called an intruder detection system that had been put? Did I understand you to say it was the 21 states had the benefit of that? What was it you said about that?
At the time in 2016, 21 state election, about 21 state election systems at the state level were behind an Albert sensor, this intrusion detection system sensor. Yes, sir.
And were those the states that flagged that there was?
Yeah, yes, sir. For the most part, what we were able to do is upload some of the indicators that were provided on other activity, including in the state, the Midwest state, and load it up into the system. It's managed by a group called the Multi-State ISAC. So the indicator was loaded up into the system, and then it took there were hits across prior traffic.
I see. So in those 21 states, there was evidence through this detection system that there have been efforts to hack into the...
There have been visits, yes, sir. So basically
Was the IDS in place in other states, or just,
Not on the election systems, but Albert sensors are deployed to every single state.
But in those 21 states, it was on the election system.
For the most part, yes, sir.
So in the places where the IDS was deployed on election systems, there was a detection of efforts to get in.
We saw traffic.
You saw traffic.
Yes, sir.
And so in all of the places where the IDS system was in place with respect to election systems, they were able to detect traffic.
I don't have information on whether it was all of the systems. I'm just saying in the 21 states where we did.
It sounds as though that system wasn't in place, the IDS, in 29 states, but based on the experience of the 21 states, where they all seem to get this traffic, one might reach the conclusion that if that IDS system had been laid on top of the election systems in those other states, based on 100% occurrence in the 21, that you might have found evidence there as well. So
my operating assumption is all 50 states.
Yeah, okay, so that's an interesting detail I hadn't focused in on before. I wanted to talk a little bit, again, to you, Mr. Krebs, about the process you're going to have when you spot through DHS or some other, in cooperation with the intelligence community, what have you, that there is a immediate present danger being posed to an election system somewhere in the country, and what you're going to do, what's the process for reaching out in real time as soon as that threat is picked up to the election administrator in that state to say, look, we flagged this, red alert, here's what we're hearing, etc. Can you just describe how that's going to work?
Sorry, it's actually not much more sophisticated than what you just laid out. We have a duty to warn. The intelligence community has a duty to warn when there's an imminent threat. And so what we would do is, working with the intelligence community, identify that information, identify the target, reach out through some information sharing protocols that we've developed with the Government Coordinating Council. We will notify the chief election official in the state, the governor, the Homeland Security advisor, the chief information officer. So we will hit the big 4 or 5 in each state, and we'll say, hey, look, this threat is incoming. We need to deal with it now. We are here to help you.
Okay, so it's not just notification. It's, okay, it's team effort here. What can we do to help you? And so what kind of resources or response or kind of SWAT team effort then gets brought to bear when the local person says, oh my God, okay, thank you, and we're going to do it, we're locking the doors and pulling down the shades, but we need your help. What's is forthcoming within, say, 24 hours or less?
So what you're really getting to is that move and that evolution beyond just simply information sharing. It's actually managing risk. It's asking 2 questions. 1, so what? What does this information mean? And 2, what are we going to do about it? So when I would theoretically or hypothetically contact Secretary Toulouse-Oliver and say, this is the problem you have, run the quick assessment, let me know what you need. I have flyaway teams located in D.C., in Florida, and elsewhere throughout the country that I can deploy within an hour, a couple hours notice, with equipment on the ground supporting the secretaries. Now, it's not just DHS. This is a broader effort. If we need to engage the National Guard, we can do that. If we need to engage,
can I ask you to do me a favor? I'm going to run out of time. What you're describing sounds good. Based on the experience with what happened in some of the 21 states last time and the way the alert was given, but then it seemed like the federal folks, in a sense, kind of walked away from the enterprise, I didn't have as much confidence about this. So if this is going to be the kind of response that you have going forward, and I certainly urge that, it would be nice for us to get some reporting back, particularly if we're in the affected states. Open up a dialogue, whether it has to be classified or not remains, that's your judgment. But we need to know in real time that that the threats are being taken seriously, and it's not just saying, hey, you got a problem. It's saying, here's what we're going to do about it. Okay? And I yield back.
Gentleman's out of time. The gentleman from Virginia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Krebs, a number of us have repeatedly asked your department for documents showing how Russia attacked state election systems in 2016. Well, those documents, despite our requests, have been withheld since last October. 11 days ago, we finally got some information, but not from you. It was from the indictment filed by the special counsel, Mr. Mueller, against 12 Russian military intelligence officials. Why did DHS withhold this information when we were able to read about it when DOJ released it in the indictment statement?
Yes, sir. So thank you. That's actually I hate saying a nuanced answer because nuance is our enemy here. The distinction is that the FBI provided investigators to special counsel Mueller's investigation. Those investigators have focused on developing the case against Russian operatives. Their information as a result of the investigation stays within the case building that special counsel Mueller has developed. That has not crossed over the firewall, as it is, into the rest of the administration. So there were details within that indictment that I had not seen before. Now, that is not to say that if they had found something about an imminent attack, that they wouldn't have shared, because they would have.
Well, So your department was kept out of the loop by the Department of Justice?
By special counsel Mueller's investigation. They had an investigation to conduct on past activities. I had information sufficient to work with the various secretaries of state and the county officials to provide them cybersecurity expertise.
So according to that indictment, in July of 2016, Anatoly Kovalev, a Russian intelligence officer, and his co-conspirators, quote, hacked the website of a state board of elections and stole information related to approximately 500,000 voters in that state, including their names, addresses, partial social security numbers, dates of birth, and driver's license numbers. Were you aware of that fact before the indictment?
Sir, I was aware of the fact that there was a state board of elections that was compromised. The Russians, it's in the intelligence community assessment. That, as I understand, is the state of Illinois. So we have been working closely with Illinois since 2016, frankly, on the incident.
So presumably you could have answered our queries about documents going back to October, at least with respect to this, since you knew about it and you knew the state, which was not identified, I believe, in the indictment.
That is correct, sir, but Illinois has come forward and said that they believe that they are the victim, and they have also said that, yes, they were the state in the ICA.
But couldn't you have been responsive to our outstanding document request, at least with respect to this?
Sir, I need to go back and look at the information we provided. I know that we have provided a number of classified and unclassified briefings to the Congress that has included that information.
Well, I guess I'm being a little more specific. There have been document requests by members of this committee. This is the Committee of Oversight in the United States Congress.
Yes, sir.
And gosh, I remember, maybe you do too, Mr. Cummings and Mr. Gotti, I mean, all kinds of times in the previous administration when, even though there might have been tens of thousands of pages of documents provided, that was often not adequate, and threats of contempt and subpoenas were issued because the entirety of the document request had not been met for whatever reason. Lord, I seem to remember excoriating, for example, the former IRS Commissioner John Koskinen in that regard, even though he sometimes had physical difficulty in producing the documents we wanted, that didn't matter. But in your case, we've got outstanding requests going back to October. Well, let me ask you this. You were prepared to promise at this hearing that you will cooperate with document requests to the best of your ability going forward.
I've always made that pledge and I will continue to do so. Yes, sir.
All right, because we're probably going to want to know more about the Illinois case and whether there were other states like that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I know my own home state of Virginia was also probed.
Any comments?
Wow. So here we are with a situation where they're giving special treatment to this guy. I mean, and we have precedent for this, where they'd hold somebody in a very similar situation in contempt. But this guy, they just, oh yeah, just give it to us when you get a chance. What the hell is that?
Oh, right. Okay. And one of the things in this letter, I won't read this whole letter, but hang on. Let me scan this really quickly. Oh, despite repeated requests, it says they just, okay. So they're basically complaining, that DHS isn't giving them what they want or what they are requesting. It says, in response, the department produced just one email with a short script that department employees apparently read over the phone to state election officials. This script is 13 sentences long and does not refer to any specific state or attack. Rather, it is a generic script that provides no specific information.
So what this sounds like to me, this is my take on all this. This is a show.
It's what it seems like.
It's a show. Both sides are engaged in a kind of, it's kabuki theater, essentially. It's just for our amusement, essentially. It has no substance to it. They're not actually working to find evidence or to find any kind of substance to DHS's claims. It's not the point here. The point is simply some means of saying, well, we're working on.
Right. Why take so long? It certainly looks like stalling. It certainly looks like
it doesn't look like it. That's what it is. I mean, you can clearly see it. This is stalling.
So, okay, I'm going to go ahead with the last part.
Oh, boy.
If anybody, is it too much? Is it killing? Too much C-SPAN?
There's an appropriate meme. I feel I should.
We can take a longer break. We'll take a longer break before the last 11 minutes of that.
I feel that this becomes rather poignant to bring up in this moment in time.
Parliamentary session hours.
The things we all wish we could do when watching C-SPAN.
Well, once you kind of realize, though, I mean, it was painstaking to go through all of it.
We wish we could negotiate with the establishment. Yes.
Gotta love a good Star Wars meme.
This is a completely underrated setup, and I wish it was explored more.
So, Rich, what do you think about this? I mean, I'm sorry, what branch again? You did some kind of intelligence stuff. Was it Army?
Yeah, U.S. Army. Yeah.
Right, okay. What do you think watching this? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I haven't seen anything that's substantial testimony that says Russia did anything. They're just sort of looking around. It's not saying they actually did any damage in 2016, and they are not even projecting damage in 2018 of any specific nature, as far as I can tell.
That's another thing, but I want to save that for the last is remarks that Krebs is making now in comparison to 2016, which just makes no sense at all. But anyway,
okay.
Yeah, and this last part's 11 minutes, so if anybody else wants to,
I have one thing to add. Here we are. We're worried about a foreign entity hacking into our election system, right?
Oh, we're hacking into their election system.
No.
I guarantee you that the United States is doing everything that they are doing to everybody else that they're doing to us.
Yes.
In the U.S. Army, there's what's the name of it? There's a branch of the U.S. Army that has a name, and its job is to develop scenarios for every possible situation, every possible military situation that can conceivably happen. It's the name escapes me right now. It's an innocuous name, but there's somebody in the Pentagon who is studying what would happen if Britain attacked us and how we would respond. And Britain and maybe some other allies. I mean, with a certain group of allies, and every situation you can name is covered under this Department of Defense section. They look into everything. It's not just Russia or China. Australia. What if Australia attacked us? There's somebody that's their job, is to figure out what would happen. What would our response be in that military situation? So.
Also, that's repeated in the others as multiple redundant.
Yes.
Yeah. Multiple redundant. What do you mean? Well, it's
I know somebody from one of the Air Force ones.
Okay.
Yeah. The Navy had it too. The Navy had a department like that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Department of Defense has a department like that, and they have participants from the Army, Navy,
Gotcha.
Air Force, or whatever. It's the same department, So it's not redundant to that extent. They're just different participants from different services,
Gotcha.
But if somebody has a Department of Defense level thing, and then you have what would the Army contribute to this, and they have people that are working on what if Britain attacked this, Air Force, what if Britain attacks. They have people working on that from all services or whatever. Yeah, I'm sure that's true. It's I wish I could think of the name of the department. It's sort of funny. It's sort of innocuous kind of name, but I mean, it's intelligence. They're covering everything, Just and one of the things that if you read the newspaper every day, you see top secret information in the newspaper. The only thing it doesn't have is an official acknowledgement from the U.S. government. But people who are in the intelligence business know that this is top secret. It's just not official. So it's really amazing how much that the news organizations do cover a lot of stuff that's very relevant information on what's happening in the world. It's there for people to know what's happening in the world. It's just not official from the government or whatever, It's about what it amounts to. So that's one thing I learned in intelligence, is that the newspapers are full of top secret information. Everywhere, about any our relationships with any country or whatever, it's all there.
Well, know now we're just, we have intelligence official, coming on CNN, without anybody kind of checking what they're saying. They're just sort of, I can't think of their names now. Is it Brennan that had been a regular on CNN? And
right.
I mean, yeah, they're just kind of saying whatever, and we take it at face value. Oh, they're on CNN. We don't question it.
Right, but going back to the whole question about our elections and whether or not a foreign entity is trying to gain access to them. Well, we have a report that came out this past week that they had a mock-up of the election system in Florida that was hacked by an 11-year-old. An 11-year-old.
Oh, I thought that was that not at DEF CON?
Right?
Just this is so laughably bad.
Wasn't that something at DEF CON that happened? Or maybe
it might have been. I think it was related to something.
Okay. So about us hacking other things, I lied. I'm going to show.
We do everything they do.
Literally, I
guarantee you. And hopefully we're ahead of them. That's the main point, is to be ahead of them.
Right.
This is literally a joke I made 2 weeks ago. What we could have wasted so little time by outsourcing all of our political strategy and election hacking out to like a 12-year-old Chinese boy for like $2 an hour. You don't even have.
Okay, have you guys seen this? This is what's his name? Woolsey? I can't remember what his title. Yeah, you know who he is.
It may not have affected the outcome of the 2016 election, but the Russians were able to pull off a wide-ranging, aggressive, and brazen attempt to interfere in the campaign. So can our intelligence agencies stop them from doing it again? Lesson asked, an old friend, former CIA director, Jim Woolsey. Jim, it's great to have you on. Thanks for being here tonight. This is wild. I mean, this indictment today was wild. I mean, they were organizing all sorts of things. They were working for that Jill Stein, trying to help her. They were anti-Trump and pro-Trump on one day after the election. What's that all about?
They want to be a force, and they want to disrupt things. They call their big overall program disinformation. And they've been doing this since the 1920s, 1930s. What's new is that they do it with cyber. But they didn't have much luck disrupting American elections back in the 1930s or 1940s. But they've been doing that to other countries all along. Ian Mihai Pacepa, the head of Romanian intelligence who defected in '79, says that there are more Russians involved in disinformation than there are in their armed forces.
How about the Chinese, Jim? What do they do to try to disrupt things? They're disrupting a lot of things around the world for us, I know that.
So far, not the same way the Russians do. But the Russians, I don't know, they Photoshop photographs of the Pope to make him look like he's saluting to a German Nazi officer. You
don't think the Chinese are involved in this type of activity? I mean, they have an economy that dwarfs Russia's. They're a standing army of 2.3 million people. They're militarizing space, stealing our technology. I mean, I think it's important that we stop this Russian stuff, but every time someone says Russia, I say China.
Oh, you should. It's that's right. They are strategically a lot smarter. The Russians basically are like the old fellow who lived next to the Lincolns in their farm when he was a little boy. Lincoln said the old boy used to say, "I don't need much land, just what adjoins mine." That's Russia. I mean, I got some Georgia. Let's take some Ukraine. And that's pretty much.
But they have an economy smaller than the size of France. I mean, they don't. I mean, come on. Compared to China, I mean, China's like eating our lunch on so many fronts.
Headed down, and it gives us some leverage. If we can work to get the price of oil down in the 30s, well, 40s even, we will create a very, very unhappy Putin.
But we don't want to push Russia to China, though. That's the last thing we want is a Russo-Sino alliance.
We just want to weaken them because we can deal with them a lot better if they're weak. I was negotiating the Conventional Forces Treaty in Europe in '89 when the Berlin Wall went down. And you've never seen such nice Russians. Let me tell you, all you got to do is destroy their strategy. They're sweethearts.
But isn't Trump doing that with pushing all this domestic energy production? We are soon going to become the largest exporter of energy in the world. Isn't that a weapon against Russian expansionism?
It's good, but it's really mainly about a balance of payments. What matters more is the price. If you can get the price not up there in the 70s and 80s, but down in the 30s and 40s, and you can do it just by letting...
We have a glut of energy being produced with fracking and everything else.
Yeah, that helps, but you can also, to get the price down, you can give people an incentive to have two fuels to choose from at the pump, filling station. And once you do that, you've got arbitrage that takes the price of oil down into the 30s or 40s. And
so lots of different ways
they care about that. The Russians care about that a lot.
Obama didn't do much in response to this meddling in our election. They knew back in 2014, long before Trump got into the mix, that this was a problem. But as far as I could tell, they just allowed that Uranium One sale to go through with that CFIUS committee.
Bad call.
Yeah, so that helped Russia.
Sure.
So what do we do? How do we stop this in the future? Weaken them economically, and then what?
I think what we really want is to get them to start pulling in their horns and coming back out of Georgia, back out of Ukraine. We need them. We need to turn them around because they are taking over, even with their military and other inadequacies. They are taking over a lot more of Eurasia than they should, and it gives them heart as they take more and more under their wing.
Have we ever tried to meddle in other countries' elections?
Oh, probably. But it was for the good of the system in order to avoid for example, in Europe, in 47, 48, 49, the Greeks and the Italians.
Never Iran.
No, we don't mess around.
Peru, yeah.
Only for a very good cause.
Can you do that? Do a Vine video on this former CIA director.
Also, everything that happened in Guatemala during the 20th century.
It's always great to see you.
Most of South America.
Bolivia, no.
Did you hear him though? I think some bit of this went viral or something. It was because he does this
Fair to
weird
say yes.
no thing where she asks like, do we meddle, and that's his response. It's really weird.
Only when it's good for the country or good for the world. Yeah, it's the only time we interfere or meddle.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Great.
Right.
And the thing is too, he talks about here's where you know he's lying. He talks about reducing the price of oil.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing. I've taken economics. The current price of oil is completely fabricated.
Mm-hmm.
It is artificially high. There's no reason for it right now to be this high. We have an enormous glut right now of oil in this country. Are artificially inflated. We could easily drop that price if we just let out a fraction of the oil we're holding on to.
Reserves, yeah.
Yeah, it would drop the price overnight. It would plummet it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it typically does raise in the summer, but it has been for months now, just creeping up cents every week.
Yes.
And it's back about up to the $3 here line, and I realize it's probably much more in other parts of the state or other country, but we were down to $2 for a while here, and now we're back up inching to $3, and it's just a quiet increase, and it's just what they can get out of it. Looking on, as soon as summer's over, demand is going to really go off. They're going to fight for who can sell what. And we'll probably see a huge dump, and that probably usually results in that major hit to the stock market, mid-September to late October.
But what I'm saying is even with that, the price is still artificially inflated. It doesn't need to be anywhere near this high.
And it's even worse in Europe. They're paying per liter what we're paying per gallon, and they're producing the fuel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're right. It is worse in Europe.
Time to invade another Middle Eastern country.
No.
All right, who's
Obviously,
ready for the
that's the right answer. But
who's ready for my last clip here?
Okay.
Am I killing you with C-SPAN? And
You're
got
killing me softly. You're killing me softly.
I've got like many more hours to watch, but that's for next week.
Great song, yeah. Killing Me Softly. Great song.
All right, here we go. 1 second.
Something kill him with kindness.
Okay. Come on. Sorry. Here we go. There we go.
I'll ask my questions last. I want to start by thanking all four of you for your expertise and your comedy with one another, and also with the members of the committee. I want to start by addressing some of my colleagues' concerns, because I think they do warrant being addressed. If I understood the concerns earlier in this hearing, it was kind of two-part. Number one, they want an investigation into what Russia did, and they would prefer that investigation be public. I'm sure some of my colleagues are aware of this, but for those who are not in Congress, those who may be watching, those who may be reading, I spent the better part of 2017 in a skiff interviewing more than 70 witnesses on what Russia did to this country. And I get that some of my colleagues want every single committee of Congress to look into the fact pattern, including the Small Business Administration Committee, including Natural Resources. They want every committee of Congress. But the reality is, given the sensitive nature of this information, that investigation is best handled in a confidential setting, which is where the House Intelligence Committee meets. It's where we met for the better part of 2017. It's where the Senate Intelligence Committee is currently meeting. and they will issue a report. And it is not lost on me, perhaps it won't be lost on our four witnesses. There have been a number of references this morning to the indictments that have been issued by the grand jury and the Mueller probe. Anyone sit through the grand jury proceedings? Anyone got a problem with the fact that you didn't sit through the grand jury proceedings? Anyone sat in on any of Bob Mueller's interviews?
Where is everybody?
Any of you have a problem with the fact that you haven't sat in on any of Bob Mueller's interviews?
They didn't even sit through the end of
Everything can't be done in public. We had the most productive classified briefing, I think, that I have ever been part of last week. I really wish my fellow citizens could have participated in it. I wish they could have heard what Inspector General Horowitz told both sides, not just this committee, but also Judiciary. Because if you heard what he said, you would not view this as a partisan issue. You would view it as the United States of America was attacked. So I hope at some point the light of day can be shown on all of what happened in 2016. But I just caution my fellow citizens, they do not have any issue with the fact that in every one of their local jurisdictions, somewhere, some investigation is being done confidentially. Whether it's a grand jury, whether it's deliberations by a petit jury, whether it's deliberations by an appellate court in their state, and they don't have a problem with the fact that certain things are done in confidence. And when it comes to not tipping off our adversaries as to what we know and how we know it and what we are doing to guard against it in the future, if there's ever an argument for things to be done in confidence, I think that is the best argument. Having said that, Madam Secretary, I do not know when you became Secretary of State. So let me start by asking, in 2016, were you in your current position?
No, sir, but I was the county clerk in the largest county in New Mexico.
All right. Well, it would not be fair for me to ask you this question, but to the extent you have any information, I do want you to weigh in. I never really understood why Jay Johnson was criticized in 2016, the former DHS secretary. I mean, elections are predominantly state and local matters, and the notion that he, as a federal cabinet level official, was supposed to summarily decide to inject himself in the 2016 elections, I don't think was fair to Jay. But there was a decision made in January 2017 to declare our election infrastructure a critical infrastructure. Can any of the four of you address why the decision was not made in the fall of 2016, but it was made in January of 2017? Not all at once.
That predates my time at the department. I'll just add, though, that the way I look at election infrastructure, it is a national critical function. It is essential to the functioning of this government, and the Department of Homeland Security will continue to support state and local governments.
I guess the reason I started off by saying I really wish, I mean, I get that the other 364 days out of the year we're gonna quarrel about who should be elected. I would like this to be the one day that we just quarrel about making sure the person who is elected actually serves. So we haven't had hearings about what President Trump discussed with Vladimir Putin, just like we haven't had hearings about what President Obama discussed with Vladimir Putin while the hacking was going on. In 2016, we've had no hearings on that. Madam Secretary of State, final question because I'm out of time. There are a lot of ways to count votes. The Senate does it. You have to show up in person. The House, you have to show up in person, but you use a voting card. My wife is a first grade school teacher. They use a combination of raising their hands and voice vote. Based on decibel rather than people. So there are a lot of ways to vote. What, in your judgment, is the safest, most secure way to vote, even accepting that our friends in the media may not know within 45 minutes of the polls closing who won? If you're interested in making absolutely sure it is safe, secure, and therefore reliable, what is the safest way to cast a ballot?
So it's important to emphasize that every state utilizes a system that's right for them. And even within those states, some jurisdictions use slightly different systems. So making sure that you're utilizing a system that voters are comfortable with and have confidence in is extremely important. With that being said, in my personal opinion, the use of paper ballots is absolutely critical because you have a paper and a voter verifiable backup at the end of the day. If there's ever a question as to whether your tabulators were tampered with, your election night reporting system, you are always able to go back and reconstruct the election on the back end utilizing that paper system. So that, in my opinion, Mr. Chairman, is the safest and most secure way to conduct an election. But with that being said, every state has security and resiliency plans for whatever system they are using, and every state is absolutely 100% dedicated to making sure those systems are protected.
I know it's a multifactorial analysis. You want to incent people to vote. You want to make it as easy for them as you can. There obviously is a speed element. People don't want to wait 3 weeks to see whether or not they won or lost an election. But in terms of safety, security, reliability, knowing that the person who received the most number of votes actually was elected, in your judgment, at least for New Mexico, that is done with paper ballots.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right. I am out of time, but I was not the only one this morning who went over. I want to thank our witnesses again for appearing before us today, and I really mean that. I appreciate your expertise, appreciate your public service, even in a sometimes trying environment. The hearing record will remain open for 2 weeks for any member to submit a written opening statement or questions for the record. The gentleman from Maryland.
Oh, listen to this.
Travis,
I thought it was over, but
my heart wouldn't let me get out of here without telling you this. Don't play with us. You said that you read the letter this morning about our requests. And time is short. Back when Muhammad Ali was fighting, they used to do something called a rope-a-dope. And I feel like you rope-a-doped us to a bit this morning. I'm just telling you how I feel. And it's quite, I wanted to walk out of the room and not say anything. But my heart won't let me do that. Would you please give us the documents and don't play with us? I'm not, we're asking for something that's reasonable. We're simply trying to do our job. I know you said you've done all these briefings and whatever. Can you let us know when we're going to get the documents?
Sir, I need to go actually look and see what documents we haven't provided that you're still looking for. I have a job to do as well, and my job is to be as transparent as possible with the body.
There you go. That's what I want.
I'm doing it.
Yeah, I want you to be as transparent as possible. And I don't believe to date that has been the case. I'm just telling you.
I apologize for that impression, but that has not been my goal. That has not been the direction I've provided my team.
Wonderful, wonderful. I hope your team is listening. So we have now an opportunity to correct that now that we will start with a new page today. And let me tell you the reason why I mentioned the rope-a-dope. Congress is only going to be in session for a little while, this week, basically. Then we're out for August. We got an election in Maryland, all over the country in November. So, time is of the essence. And so I'm hoping that your staff will sit down with our staff. And I'm talking about bipartisan. And go over get us the documents that we want, okay?
You have that commitment. This all rolls up to me. I'm responsible.
It's all what?
It all rolls up to me. I'm going to get you what you need.
Thank you very much. And thank all of you for your testimony. Has been quite helpful.
The hearing record will remain open for 2 weeks for any members to submit written opening statement or questions for the record. If there's no further business, without objection, the committee stands adjourned.
Rope-a-dope.
Yeah, really, rope-a-dope. Paper ballots. The young lady from wherever she was from is
New Mexico.
Quite right.
Yeah.
Paper ballots, and the less expensive method is paper ballot.
Yeah, right.
They're worried about replacing machines all over the state, all over the country. just have paper ballots and write them up, and the people who work in the precinct can make the tabulation, turn it in, and it's I think in Canada that's what they do up there. They don't do a lot of electronic machinery. They just do paper ballots.
Yeah, I'm for paper ballots, but we also have to block what happened in Wisconsin.
What's that?
Where the data from the paper ballots was then called into one central location.
Oh, right.
And put onto an access database, which does not keep any record of the order of things that are changed. It's got even less of a traceability than Excel. So then when the count needed to change, miraculously just enough votes appeared. Because they first came out different. 15 minutes later, oh, I found another report, added it in, and of course nothing has happened. So I believe that not only do we need paper ballots, but we also need a chain of custody with 3 people at each level. If you've been to military installations, some installations don't allow a person to be alone.
Right.
Again, this needs to happen. Now, it's a public thing, so I believe it should be public. But once those ballots are in and the person has been anonymized, then from that point on, those ballots, if they're moved, need to be on camera. If they're counted, that counting needs to be on camera, and that needs to be available to anybody to see anytime. So I believe it would take us no more than an extra 15 hours or so to actually do this method. But they can call in the votes, do it in multiple stages. We have the first stage be the hand counting. We have the second stage be the electronic counting. Both of them need to agree, or it's an automatic recount.
Right.
And we need to have multiple fail-safes at all of these locations to guarantee that the human factor isn't being involved. Because I can tell you, I believe a lot more tricky things are going on, such as in the last Iowa caucus in the Des Moines precincts, one of the biggest precincts. The people, they took a vote. Hillary was going to lose. They told the Bernie people it's all over, votes are recorded, go home. Then they took a revote and turned that one in. So again, I feel that it's this chain of what's going on. Also, we need to coordinate between the states, that we all have the same rules, and that all of the rules go up in an order. As it's a crapshoot. Although I like the Iowa caucus because it has built-in instant runoff.
Right.
I do not like the fact that only people who are available to be there for that time and the entire time get their vote coded. So to me, I would like to see all caucuses removed and replaced with primaries, and the primary should not be by party anymore.
You're right.
Or
the be open primary.
Yeah.
Well, the party should not run. The party should not run the primary.
Right.
If they want to be a party, they can be it. They can't count the votes. They can't influence the counting. Once the counting goes in, it has to be performed in public, and we have to take it back to being a public operation, because the government's duty is to protect against all risks, foreign and domestic. And
right.
I believe we have a huge domestic problem. Almost all of this is domestic problem. We're spending so much on our defense from outside that we're spending nothing on our defense from inside.
That's the hardest part about listening to this stuff. Yeah, is that exactly that. They're not listening to the guy from Michigan saying that we need help with the local stuff. But yeah, go ahead.
That's the whole point. That's why they're making this Russia thing so that's why they're focusing so much on it, because they don't want us looking at what's actually going on. They don't want us paying attention to how our elections are actually conducted, because then we'd realize, wait a minute, this is where the real problem is. We don't have to worry about this outside influence. We've got this problem right here in front of us.
Yeah. So what do you guys all think about the whole, making election part of critical infrastructure, where the sort of the federal, they spoke about that a little bit. I think I played the clip where the Secretary of State from New Mexico was saying, well, yeah, I mean, we have federal elections, there should be some partnership. But then you have some states, you know, I know like Georgia, they don't want to be that to happen, where it's all part of federal critical infrastructure, because they feel like then they lose any control over the elections, and it's all controlled by the federal government. What do you guys think about that?
At this point, we can't even prove that they had any input in the last one.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I come back to it has to be this chain of custody.
Yeah.
It has to be observable and provable and reproducible.
That's what
Absolutely.
Lulu Freistadt talks about a lot. Yeah.
And we need to prosecute people who do not follow this pattern.
Yeah, not still have them employed like in Florida, Broward
No,
County?
I mean jail them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just can't kill them.
Completely agree.
And they one they need to make it so that paper ballots, when we do have them, that they cannot be destroyed until it's available for a recount.
Right. That's what I was referring to.
That's part of chain of custody. They need to be serialized.
Right.
A voter was issued this one. This is how they voted. And we can look back and we can see, like on that night, there's no reason why every vote can't be scanned and put online that night. The next day, somebody should be able to look online and say, serial number 555589A was this. And they should be able to look in 2 weeks, did it change?
Well, one thing that really bugs me is the fact that no election in the country is official until about 2 weeks after Election Day. So what's the damn big rush to find out what it is today, the day of the election or the day after, when the election is not going to be actually.
Yeah, I concur. Each one of these officers should be called up and said, there should be an investigation. Did you follow this procedure? Did you follow this procedure? Did you follow? If not, maybe we should have a second day where there's a revote saying, oh, Debbie Wasserman Schultz burned all of the ballots. Let's revote.
Yeah, right.
She had a big bonfire fundraiser somewhere.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, yes. But,
didn't they, in California, the actual results weren't for how much longer after they were actually called? I don't know.
What do you mean?
In the Democratic primary, it was actually quite some time later by the time they counted all the provisional ballots.
From my understanding, I talked to somebody not too long ago, they never really finished counting.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
they never concluded it. They didn't finish counting here in California.
They just brought that shredder. They just
parked
the shredder truck
and then just kind of and done with it. They didn't finish counting it.
We have so much room to store stuff. I can't believe we don't, not only have the paper ballots, but we require them to be kept for 20 years.
Right?
Well, at least a year, 5 years, something, So,
right.
At least throughout that term.
Yeah, at least through the 4-year term, 2-year term, or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Or let's say to the end of the following term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, that'd be good.
That makes sense.
Because it took over a term for everything to come out on the W. Wasserman Schultz one.
Right.
But it comes back to the human factor. We're looking at, hey, we had special bots to go in and do this and that. And we're not looking, what did the humans do? What kind of stupid things? We had people in there that could make the changes on site.
Like you.
I'm not that good a programmer.
Well, one thing I don't see a reason why we shouldn't have elections be like 4 days, and then the news media cannot report on election results until.
I'm actually okay with them reporting it. I'm actually okay with them reporting it.
What it influences, if you have a race that's in the East Coast that one candidate is winning it by 50%, and then the people in the next 3 or 4 districts or what the next time zones they don't go to vote because hell, it's over.
Yeah, and that happens to Hawaii and Alaska.
Outcome, you know.
Hawaii, Alaska, and Guam. But the other thing is,
all across the country it does, you know, because they start reporting, you know, in one time zone, and they have a result, and everybody sort of, well, I'm not going to go bother to go vote today. I got to take care of the kids. I got my dad's going to the doctor, blah blah blah, et cetera. You know.
Especially if they announce the winner the night before they even
Right.
have the primary.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I would like to see it as far as no concession speeches that night. Because they're in a hurry to get that concession speech.
Yes, they are.
Make it 2 weeks from the day of the election, because that's when they make the damned election results final and official anyway. It's not official until 2 weeks after any election.
Right.
Exactly.
Never.
Right.
Never. You know.
And that's the point they should concede. We shouldn't be at like I said, a rush to report.
Yeah, this is an important function. Elections are an important function of our democracy, and we should not rush it. It should take its time and let that 2 full weeks take whatever course it takes, and leave it open for what needs to be done to make sure that it's in a correct result. You know, so.
I think there should be a channel, a news channel or something that's devoted or whatever, devoted just to following elections and like what happened. Like recently we did that panel with the CWAC candidates in Michigan, and then I saw, I think it was from Brandon DeGraff and somebody else, that there were all kinds of discrepancies with the election that just happened in Michigan. I haven't had time to dig into what they're saying happened, but I mean, how do we keep up with all of this? You know, the media is not following it, so.
Well, we have data that 6 counties in Iowa were not properly done during the caucus that Hillary won. And how many did she win by?
40 votes or 100 or 200 or something. It wasn't very much. It was close, wasn't it?
In my county, it was 4.
Okay, yeah. Right.
But I wasn't the one that flipped it. But there was.
Oh yeah, the coin toss. Is that what you're referring to?
3 coin tosses. All of them came out for.
Yeah.
Was it 6?
Yeah, right. That's a good way to decide an election, right there.
But the ones where they were caught on video.
Yeah.
You know, actually ignoring the Bernie one and naming Hillary as the winner. That is a total disgrace to the party.
Yeah. Right.
You know, at that point, I could not ethically vote for Hillary Clinton. Again, I'm a registered Democrat. I could not vote for somebody that does that.
This is what we've talked about, how this stuff is by design. When people hear this, they're like, why bother? Like you said, I've got other stuff to do. I got to take my dad to the doctor, whatever. Like, they hear this stuff and go, it's not legitimate. It doesn't count. So it kills the belief in our system.
Yes,
people
I have some guy who lives out in Arizona, and he gives $1 million to the Republican presidential candidate one day, and then 2 days later they need some more, so he gives another $2 million to them out of his own personal funds. Where does that leave the ordinary American who can't give $1 million to any candidate, you know, or $100 might, that's pretty high for them, you know, so.
Well,
we have a place in the system. We don't have a place in the system when the money is awash in the system like that.
I just like to see that they keep spending that stupid amount of money, and it keeps going to the mainstream media that a lot of people aren't watching anymore. And that it's just wasted. Let them waste it, you know.
I'm seeing a lot of the commercials now on the internet. Because, well, this is Iowa. We're getting flooded with it. The 2020 election is already here. Like I said, it started last week. So we're getting flooded. Everybody knows you got to win Iowa or you're done. Or at least show well here. But
what's the name of that day yesterday? What do you call that?
Wing ding. Can you see the Zoom group chat?
Can you look that up on the internet? It's called Wing Ding, and it gives you stuff on it.
On the bottom of the screen, move your mouse down to the bottom, and you'll see invite participants, share screen, chat. Click on chat, and you'll see the link.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted to wait for Aeolus to come back for this part. Maybe he might be asleep.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I lost my chain of thought there.
Oh, sorry.
No, before you even said that, I lost it.
What were you saying?
Jeez, yeah, I completely lost it.
You said you couldn't. No, you couldn't vote for.
He's
Hillary.
talking about the wing ding.
Yeah, but before the wing ding.
Was the coin toss? No, that was further.
Yeah, the cheating. Well, I'll think of it after the show's over.
Yeah.
I don't say the word. I don't see the words wingding on that.
Do you see from me or from? There should be one that says from Snork Y2K. Should be one that says Iowa wingding official video. Click on chat, and then a Zoom chat window should go on your right side, and you should see three submissions from me.
Okay, I see. Okay. Okay.
I put on there. I put the time. Well, it's like the guy before him comes up, and that's when they cut the camera, because when the guy before him came up, the Yang and the guy to announce Yang both came up and stopped right at the stage, and it's like they saw Yang walk up to the stage and they just popped the cameras.
Really, that's interesting.
Well, who was in control of the cameras? Was it actually the Democratic Party with control of the cameras, or
that's the Democratic Party camera that goes, and none of the other cameras that were there. There was 5 news cameras behind me. None of them showed it. I can't find it. Can't find it. Yeah, other than the link that I got you can't do a search and find it.
That's a way to know that they're scared of him.
Yeah,
because I'm sure that we'll do another show on that.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think he would come on and talk, or?
He's coming out to see me, so I'll ask him.
Awesome, that's great. Very cool. Well, I wanted to ask when Aeolus got back, but what you guys think about Gowdy's comments at the end there about how some things, just need to be kind of kept secret.
I think some things do need to be secret. I don't think anytime you're strategizing on something critical, that sometimes the knowledge of that could be bad if other people knew what you're planning, and it allows other people to plan how to make contingencies for your contingencies. Unless that sounds too crazy.
No, but I mean, I think in this climate where you had, the Democratic primary was rigged, and I mean, we all know that.
Well, let's break it down into public actions should be public. So like the party deciding what it wants to do and where, that should be private communications. But when it comes to I voted for this, when it comes time to we were here, those things should not be private.
But I mean, I feel like he's kind of saying, I mean, how are we supposed to just, I question the whole Russia narrative, because we haven't seen any evidence of it, right? And if they're trying to say, well, we just can't reveal some of that, the public should just trust what the intelligence agencies are saying. I mean, I told a friend of mine just the other day, she didn't know, and she's a couple years older than I am. She's 51. I told her about Mueller, and I said, do you know that he's the same guy? He's the same guy that, said we have weapons of mass destruction. And she didn't remember that. And it's like, so we have reason to question and not just take what they say as the truth. And I feel like it's really, it'd be nice if we could trust our intelligence agencies and say there are times that they just can't reveal, and so we in the public can't know the details. But, in this case, I just don't think it's, I don't know.
That does come back to the thing I was talking about when I was in Army Intelligence, and that was back a long time ago, et cetera, before the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq and all that. Before that time, I don't know exactly what it was during Bush's time, but you would see information about wars or about strategy and all that kind of thing. It would be in the newspaper. There would be comments on it that if you knew that newsmen have good access to our government and to government officials, and they interview them, and they put information from those interviews into the paper. It's not official from the government, but they put top secret information in there. We are very well informed on what is actually happening. In most cases, underneath Trump and underneath Bush, I'm not sure about that, because we were pretty much anti-newspaper, anti-journalist to some extent.
Well,
Trump, but
I have one there. I left a comment in the Zoom chat, but I could say it in public. I can't remember if it was the day before or the day after. We're talking something 14 years ago. Bush gave a speech where he wanted Europe to participate in the Second World War with us.
Right.
And he gave a speech where he said, either you're with us or against us.
Oh, yeah.
And we went there. The government sometimes requests new technologies. And I worked for a company that developed some. And they were requesting components for a weapon that could attack every European city in 12 hours and wipe them out.
Wow.
Now, you don't release something like that. And I viewed that package. They gave us this huge package. It was on a CD, and it was just full of stuff. It, to me, was a threat to Europe, because Bush gave the speech, you're with us or against us. And then they gave this thing where people there were there from almost every country, probably hidden amongst us somewhere. And they gave this thing asking for, we want this system to actually just devastate any country that is no longer a U.S. ally.
Yeah, right.
And it didn't give like plans, but it definitely said that, like you said, the contingencies that we had a contingency plan.
What kind of weapon system was it? Atomic?
No, not atomic. There's too much blowback for using atomic. You can't fire that on anybody. Atomic weapons are useless to me.
Yeah,
we can't use atomic weapons unless we want to escalate, right?
Yeah, but there's conventional weapons of some sort.
Yeah, I would say, more conventionals.
Okay.
Oh, I wanted to see if I can find this quote. I mean, I'll be talking about this more, but here it is. I just wanted to go back and kind of wrap up at least that segment of talking about the election hacking stuff. So I found it really interesting that there are several quotes from Krebs that are kind of very similar. Basically, just listen to this. He says, let me back up a little bit. Okay, this is part of the article here. The 2018 midterm elections do remain a target. Krebs told senators during a July 11th hearing of the House, the segments we were listening to, that while the elections remain a potential target for Russian disinformation campaigns, there's no evidence that activity has reached 2016 levels. Now, what that means, I don't know. Here's his quote. Quote, what we're saying is we haven't seen a campaign on the scale of 2016 of concerted attacks against the election infrastructure, concerted attacks against these campaigns.
Right. Unless, of course, the Russians have found a way to hide it so that we're not aware of what they are actually doing, which is always a possibility, So.
But I don't understand what he's referring to, though. He's saying, it's not as bad in 2018 as what we saw in 2016, but we never learned what it was. The scanning,
right?
The what? Yeah. So it's all this ambiguous, just the way he words it. Something here about the latter point referring to a senior Microsoft executive's July 19th assertion that 3 2018 candidates' campaigns were being targeted by phishing campaigns similar to those seen in 2016.
Yeah, right. That's phishing. trying to find something. Or
the phishing campaign, again, that's another, this is IT stuff that I can't really, wrap my head around. I mean, we read that that's what supposedly Reality Winner had exposed, something about the phishing campaigns, right?
Right.
But that's a whole nother.
Well, one thing I wonder about too is that maybe the actual damage, that the potential damage that's done by the Russian hacking is something which is done in a confidential hearing. We saw public hearing segments, so the actual confidential hearings may have more relevant information as to what the potential for damage by the Russian hacking is.
My problem with all that is we have so many. I don't know how much you've listened to, some whistleblowers that are, John Kiriakou and Ray McGovern and Bill Binney has been very outspoken. I mean, these are guys that know their stuff, and they're kind of saying this isn't adding up. So I don't know if you've listened to sort of their analysis on this stuff, but.
I haven't. But I'm thinking the same thing is not adding up from what's public,
No. So how do we just take their word for it?
Right.
No, and we know where that got us with Iraq.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, they're not even changing the actors. We still have.
Right. Well, that's exact. Those are my I think because I borrowed your words when I told my friend about this. I said, yeah, they're not even changing the people. It's the same person, and. She got really quiet because I think she's not quite sure about
what people
stuff I say. Mueller just saying, we have Mueller saying and he was the one that said, under oath about weapons of mass destruction. And this friend of mine who's older than me, she didn't remember that, and she got really quiet for a minute. She was like, "Oh," I was like, "Yeah."
Say that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Mueller said that.
Yes, he did. Yeah, he testified.
So, he was wrong.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. Right. Well, maybe. I hope. I'm feeling there's some. I think there's integrity in the investigation he's doing now, in what he's doing. I think he's probably done a good job. He's uncovering some things, like those 8 or 10 Russian agents he said he indicted. Because of their part, there's something. He's actually finding out some things, and he's maybe gonna. I think Trump feels threatened for a reason. I think that Mueller is being effective in his investigations, from what I can tell.
But are any of these things, the spies or anything, has any of that even been tied back to Trump? It hasn't.
Not as of yet.
Yeah. Well, that's something that he's going to be holding all those cards until he actually finishes the investigation and brings it out and starts.
It's just gone on so long.
Let's go down low level, higher level until they get to the top level, whatever it is they're going to be coming to. So I think there's a pretty good chance that Trump's going to be indicted on something that he's going to be not be in the presidency for his full term. I think it's a possibility.
They've been at it a long time. Just seems like, what isn't it supposed to be concluded in September? I can't remember where it was I read that.
Well, I think they think he may have a report by September or something like that, maybe before the midterm elections. But that depends upon the investigation. It might go another year. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've been going for a couple hours now.
Oh my God.
I love it as always. Sorry to have eaten up lots of time with clips, but
no, don't be.
I think that we kind of have to comb through all that stuff if you really want to get something without the spin and just hear exactly what is being said.
Well, I'm glad you went to the trouble of doing 3 hours listening to all stuff, and I didn't have to do that. And you cleaned out some information. One of the most interesting comments that one man made, the guy from what is it from?
What did he say?
Well, the guy that was they were trying to get the information from. He said that.
Krebs.
He was talking. Yeah, Krebs. He said something about. I think it was him that said that. Do we do the same thing to other nations? Look,
that was the.
He said, well, we only do that when it's something good.
Right. Yeah, that was
Woolsey. To do it, So I know, so yeah, like Iraq, all the places that the CIA have overturned democratic governments in the past. So is the United States guilty of what the Russians are doing? Yes. Mm-hmm. And maybe we've been worse than anybody in the world for the last 50 years, as far as overturning governments, democratic governments, and supporting dictatorships in their various parts of the world. So our hands are not clean by any means.
But it's okay when we do it, right?
Well, yeah. Well, we're doing it. We're the good guys, right?
Mm-hmm. We're the good guys. Right. Torture people.
Well, I think
you can tell by the hats we wear.
I think the biggest challenge, at least for me and all this stuff, is trying to understand what all of it means, like these Albert sensors. And then I kind of got down in that rabbit hole of trying to figure out what company was using those. I mean, oh my God. I mean, you have to understand all this tech stuff to really get that. And then then you see that guy from Maryland saying, oh, well, this system is partly owned by this Russian company. I mean, it's just...
Yeah, there's no... what Bill Gates let us know a long time ago, that the government is unimportant. What's important is the corporations who make money from everybody. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know governments are irrelevant. He says the Constitution is irrelevant.
Well, when I heard all the amounts, they were saying, oh, yeah, we sent this, whatever, millions of dollars for election, to update machines and stuff. All I could think was, oh, okay, so these tech companies that want their hands in the,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Exchange machines, we want something better. We can invest another $13 million,
right.
Or
right. Who's really benefiting from that? Because they're not
make the equipment or
right. It's not they're not sending the money. It doesn't sound like to Detroit to train the workers and to make sure that they have enough ballots. No, they're just going to award contracts to these companies to have these voting machines. It's just a clusterfuck. Pardon my language.
Also, all these areas have lots of unemployed people. Lots of unemployed people.
Right. Yeah.
Will work for it of all types of different backgrounds.
Uh-huh.
So I don't care what the skill level is. Some of the times I just need somebody to be there to say, I watched it. It happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And most people, if you go down on that level, most people have integrity. They're just there they don't have any political battles to win or lose.
Mm-hmm.
They're just there to do their job. And I think if you had paper ballots, that would be done on a lower level. It would be done with complete integrity because the people there don't have any reason to throw an election or make it go one way or the other, So.
Right.
Especially if they do it on camera.
Yeah.
Right. Well, especially if you have one person from each party overlooking the operations, or somebody from the left and right, or wherever you're going to talk about it, So you have two people with different points of view. They're going to double check each other. When I was in the Army, we did counterintelligence. We did security. You had two people. 3-position dollar type combination lock, and two people checked to see if it was locked at night. It wasn't locked up unless two people checked to make sure it was locked up.
Mm-hmm.
Every place you went in security, that's what it was done. It's two people make sure that something is done right. So
right.
And that way you have you're watching each other, so you're sort of making sure that something's done correctly.
Yeah, there have to be those checks there. Otherwise, it's just too enticing.
Double check.
Triple. Yeah.
Triple wouldn't be bad. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so Rich, I really do think it would be a great idea to do a segment maybe for you on a more regular basis to talk about the IVA and all the work you're doing. This is obviously Saturday night. We kind of talk about everything or whatever is the topic of the day.
The only thing that bothers me about that is the fact that I don't have the damn templates done for the state and the local.
Okay.
And when I get that done, so that I could say, everybody on this panel say, well, let's set up an IVA in your county.
Mm-hmm.
I can give you the templates to do it. We can set that up in half an hour, and it'll be a presence in the county.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Remember another time you were on, there was a woman on that was from the Guion Journal, and she was saying, just getting the word out about it, so maybe you can get some volunteers to help with that stuff.
The word out about what? About the IVA?
Mm-hmm. Or about any of that work that you need done,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah, well, yeah. I need somebody from Lowell to come in and, well, anyway, it's sort of technical. There's this program. It's a global text changer. You take a string of text and you change it. And so the templates, when they're set up, you can go in and you have the text strings you need to edit are there in the template. So that it takes 5 minutes or 15 minutes to do the national, state, and local directories. It takes this batch text replacer. It takes actually a minute, to make the changes, in each one. So it takes 3 minutes, but of course you have to mess around with it and just get it set up and all that kind of stuff. So in half an hour you can set up a new county and a county IBA in Washington State or any state you want to name, because the template will be there. You can do it, And the thing is, the templates they have a statement. What have I got?
Yeah, we need help. I'm not good with graphics stuff either.
I wonder if I could share something. Let's see. Where do I find my screen? I don't know.
So, Snork, when are you meeting with me?
This is Rika Wallen. This is not, her campaign is not officially adapted this yet, and that's not her picture. That's me. But
wait, go to click on another square on your share screen. We're just seeing your Zoom thing.
Oh, you're seeing what?
The Zoom.
Oh, the Zoom.
Your Zoom menu.
Oh, what do I want to? I've got a thing that says stop share.
You can click stop share and then try again. Just go to share screen and then you probably just clicked on the wrong. You'll see several.
I'm not seeing my daggone. This is it right here. I think. See. Okay, I want to put this down at the bottom. Let's see. There we go. Put that down at the bottom. Money, come on down at the bottom. Okay, here's something right here. This is something. Can you guys see this? Rules for circulating.
Yes.
This is a PDF. It's the rules for circulating ballot access petitions in Ohio. This is that, and this is where is that? Oh, it's not there. It's interesting. Oh God, that's Hamilton County, Ohio. This is a thing for volunteers to fill out and say what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Where's it? Oh shoot, let's see. This thing insert. Okay, that's manage local IVA web pages. This is the local IVA web page manager. That's the leader of the entire IVA. It's a person who publishes the web pages and they manage the web pages.
Gotcha.
There's a IVA license agreement. This is a license agreement that everybody read through this and says use of the software restrictions. You agree to modify there's a thing in here that says that no Republicans or Democrats are welcome. You're persona non grata. Because if we're going to make a change, it's got to be outside of the two-party system,
Right.
Have integrity, I think that's essential, perhaps. Because otherwise, money comes in and it runs everything. Okay, what do I do that for? See, I'm wondering where the heck the daggone here. See.
Yeah, I really want to see how independents do this fall. I mean, we have some few notable, like Tim Canova.
Right.
Who's the guy?
Well, they're probably not going to do that well.
Yes.
Here's the guy that's going to win in Louisville. That's his newspaper, and this is him saying that Congressman John the risk of setting out this election. He's saying you shouldn't set out this election. You should elect Hillary Clinton. First, we must remember that Bernie Sanders is not. He formally and perfunctorily registered as a Democrat last year so he could seek the party's presidential nomination. This is one of the super delegates.
Yes, he caucuses with the Democrats.
He's a super delegate, you know, right?
You know what? I always find that argument is so stupid and backwards. Yeah, he's not a Democrat, and look at all the votes and support he got. What does that tell you?
It could unify the party and make us viable again. What the hell?
They're saying
they don't want that.
You know, has it ever occurred to them the irony of the fact that their most popular team player is somebody who's not even on their team?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, reenact Glass-Steagall. I like that.
Oh, this is owning your government. This is something I did a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
A motor vehicle driver's license is something everybody wants because you know what you're going to do with it. Voter registration as a license, a basic civil right, is something we don't teach in our civics classes on the high school level or the college level, because most people think the only civic duty you have, as far as politics is concerned, you have to vote. That's all. That's the whole thing, you know. Ballot access certifications, the civics lesson overlooked in high school and college, as far as that goes. Anyway, it's sort of something. What we should be doing is minor party independent people is teaching people how to do ballot access petitions, and it's just like I told somebody like I didn't get on the ballot this time for Congress in Jefferson County. All I needed is 2 ballot petition signatures and $1 from all 602 precincts, and that would put me on the ballot. Jeez. 2 signatures from each precinct out of 300 or 400 or 500 people, whatever, you know. So, but and I think I'm a decent candidate. I may not be the best candidate ever.
Yeah, no, I think you're a great candidate.
Yeah, but right now it's difficult for candidates to get on the ballot, you know. So, Rika Wallen, she did a great job getting on.
Well,
you know,
I just like to think, you know, the millennial, the generation behind us, they're so much more informed, I mean, than we were, I think, at that age. And, you know, part of it's because, well, we didn't have Google until, you know, I was, what,
I think
30. But we just didn't know. We didn't pay attention. All this stuff was behind closed doors. And now I think the younger generations are paying attention, and hopefully we'll stay involved and change this. But
well, we need to give them something that they can get their teeth into, you know. And I think as far as structure, and if you do it within the Democratic Party and Republican Party, I don't think it's going to go anywhere, because they're just going to.
Yeah.
Like the girl from the 14th.
Ocasio.
Yeah. I mean.
Yeah.
Alexandra, I think that when she gets off the plane in D.C., she's going to have a very tough time doing anything effective, you know, because she's one out of many, you know.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders did a great job, you know, for a long time, but he started compromising and went with the Democrats. So,
yeah, of course.
But his voice was a very important voice in Congress, you know. But,
well, we have to just keep fighting.
Yep.
Keep fighting. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up for tonight because my head is telling me.
My eyes are about to.
Yeah. And before Aeolus falls asleep on his keyboard, or Brian.
This is a.
It wouldn't be the first time.
Right.
This is an old version of. This is a Kentucky Commonwealth Kentucky state page that needs to be revised. It's one of the things that needs to be. See this underlining there? It's not the right way to do anything. You know, that's not the right way to do a web page. You know, so this thing needs to be revised. And,
right.
I mean, you get the information across, but yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean the information is there, but it's not the best presentation of it. You know, so you know.
Well, I think you've done a great job. I think just keep talking about it, and you know, we know that there are more people identifying as independent or no party. So I think you're on. I mean, obviously, on the right track.
Well, the IBN has been saying that the independence is 35 to 40% all over the country.
It's more than that now.
Well, I mean, 66% of the people don't vote. They don't even count the people.
Well, right, yeah, exactly.
100 people who are not registered to vote, they don't count them in those statistics, you know.
Right.
And that 100 million people, that's a third of the country, is about 25% of the people actually participate in elections or vote.
Right.
75% do not.
And that's what we have to change, and that's what I like to think that these sort of unconventional candidates that we speak to a lot will, resonate with those kinds of people that typically don't vote. That what they have to say will resonate. They don't sound like your typical politicians. Kind of like Bernie didn't.
Yeah,
so
he's a good guy.
That's what I like to think. But
Yeah.
I think why don't we should set up another time, Rich, where you could talk about. I mean, maybe after we get through. You know what we should do? We should have a lot of our independent candidates come on and talk, and have you on with the independent CWAC and CFAR candidates. What do you think about that?
That'd be great. I'd like to do something on the IVA, but again, I'm contacting people now. I'm going to be using the Zoom to get in touch with people that I'm contacting in various states to maybe go in and do some chalk talks on the IVA pages and sort of show them what they are. And the main thing I got to do is get those damn templates done so I can do, here it is, Because I don't know, I'm having a one big directory on the cloud. I think it's going to be about maybe somewhere between 5 and 10 megabytes. It's going to be, it's going to have everything that is involved in it, all the software, everything. Is going to be 5 to 10 megabytes. Is that downloadable from the cloud for people? I think it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Don't ask me that one.
Because photographs right now, you have photographs that are like 1 megabyte, 2 megabytes. You have videos that are 5, 10, 15 megabytes. So if I have a directory that's only 5 to 10 megabytes, that includes all the IVA stuff and all the software, all the HTML and everything, that should be downloadable so people can go ahead and get it. And of course, the whole thing is going to be free. All you have to do is put in the elbow grease, the sweat equity, to get it up.
Like you've done, obviously.
Yeah, right.
For a long time. You have, though. I just think it's great. Well, so I was just looking at, there's a candidate, Rob Anderson, who's an independent in Louisiana. I would like to talk to him. Haven't reached out to him yet. But yeah, we could just set up a panel with the independent voters. Mark Whitmire of Tennessee. Who else do we have? Marcia Squire. Although, what is going on? Did she go back to what was that? She was green, and then
she is quite a character.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah. She is a total character, man. She set up a date to do a DJ bit at a strip club.
Oh God, really? Okay.
I mean, she is a character, man. I don't know.
All right, well, might get some views. Let's see. Just kidding. Let's see. I'm trying to see who else we have right now as independent. But even if it's just a couple, I think that would be great to do a panel with you and the independent candidates.
Yeah, because we started to talk about maybe the strategy on how independents are going to become more effective and that kind of thing.
Right, yeah. I think that's a good idea.
One of the things that I've talked to some of the people, this girl, Rika Wallen, who's running in District 6 in Kentucky. She's independent, in fact, her mom was very influential in politics in, the state up by Michigan, Minnesota.
Wisconsin? No.
Yeah, her mother was the chair of the Minnesota Democratic Party. When Rika was growing up, I talked to her husband today by accident, but they had Jimmy Carter call their house all the time to talk to her mother, and people in the National Party and all that kind of thing, So Rika has a real strong background in politics, and she's a smart woman. I think she's a very good candidate, And whether I don't think she's going to get elected unless we get real lucky, But I hope we can make a good showing.
Well, the unfortunate reality is that it's not all going to change in 2018, and I think we have to realize that and keep going through 2020. I mean, we wish we could see more victories, but when I see these candidates that have almost no money and they got 30-something% of the vote, that's encouraging to me. It shows that it is possible. It's just a long road.
Yeah, but it's also, by the same token, I was on the ballot as a Green Party candidate in Ohio 1 in 2012. and there was a Democratic candidate who did not show up at anything. Oh, the whole thing. It's a Republican congressman, and it's a placeholder candidate. He got 47% of the vote.
Wow.
And I mean, Democrats are voting for him instead of me, which I would have been much better progressive. I mean, represent their better.
Yeah.
I got maybe 1% of the vote or whatever, you know. So
Well, it's not 2012 anymore, though. I think more people are moving away from that party loyalty. Hopefully, I know I had. Well, I guess I never really had it.
But you have a little bit of money, though. You need to have structure. You have to have people become involved on like if we have an IVA in every precinct all over the country, then we're going to have a lot of people that are involved, you know, and actually working for candidates, you know. And, maybe we can do some of the things like Bernie's fundraising for smaller, you know, for congressional seats and state Senate seats, state House, because those things are pretty winnable. I think a lot more winnable than or whatever. So if we start winning those, we have the structure that people can actually get people involved in their campaigns and raise a little bit of money, and you know. And on a local level, I think you can do better for getting on some of the local whips. Local radio stations, you know, public and that kind of thing. Have journalists like yourself who can actually get onto social media and get people to be known, you know, get people.
Well, we had these two candidates.
The idea that we can change, we can elect somebody besides Democrats and Republicans. And get that in people's minds, and they'll do something to become active in campaigns to get people elected, you know. So people right now, they started giving up on the political process. Any hope of electing anybody but a Democrat or Republican, you know. So that's sort of the middle set right now. It has been for a long time. So 200 years about it.
Time for change. All right. Well, Rich, I'm going to reach out to some of these independent candidates and see about a panel with you. I think that would be a really good discussion.
It'll be a panel on where do we go from here as independents, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of great material, and maybe they may not have seen what you've worked on. I'm trying
to get those templates done so that I can actually give somebody, well, here it is, you know, because I showed you those little CDs, you know, like. There were many CDs at one time. Where's that? Yeah, or on a CD level. I mean, the whole thing can be on. I mean, you see, that's 120 megabytes. The whole damn thing you put on there, about 1/3 of that or something, you know, or less. You know. So and distribute that thing, you know. So here, do the IBA in your district, and your, you know, all that. So.
Well, I'll see what I can set up sometime in the next couple weeks. We've got, you know.
Okay, I'll see if I can get those daggone templates done, so we have, you know, and have the Jefferson County IVA set up and this Kentucky State IVA set up. And I want to do that for Ricky anyway, because she may be using some of my campaign materials in her campaign that mentions the IVA, you know. So.
That's great.
I would say on your brochures and paperwork, you include a QR code so somebody can snap it with their cell phone and get the link.
Yep.
What kind of codes?
QR code. It's a little picture that looks like it's got a bunch of boxes.
Right.
3 reference boxes, and it has a digital thing. Your phone will recognize it, and I'll take you right to that website.
Well, how do you
create the website?
I don't even know how to create a.
You can always call us back and ask.
Okay.
And
I don't know how to call you.
Just get in touch with Kelly.
No, not me.
Or Brian. They'll get you my address.
Yes.
Okay.
Victor will take any kind of information you need, but you could either do take me to this website, or you can do it automatic, make a donation.
Right.
So they click it and they'd say yes or no. Do I want to donate?
Now, I have some of that stuff on Facebook and that kind of thing. Like I have a donation page that uses PayPal and all that.
Right. So what a QR code does is allows you to take a normal piece of paper. And have that link on it with just that ease of making the link as you do clicking on it.
Yeah, like your flyer or whatever. Yeah.
Yes. Any flyer you have.
Yeah.
If you go out and you talk to somebody.
A paper flyer, and they can use their phone to zap that, and then they're on the web page. Yeah.
Yep. And the paper's going to get thrown away, going to get lost. The best shot, if you talk in public. Have a badge with a QR code on it.
Badge. Oh, you mean like okay.
If you talk to somebody, they got the link.
Okay, I've got. Oh, here's a badge.
Yeah,
QR code on that dude right there that I'm wearing that on my thing, and they can just go ahead and scan it. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Okay. Well,
great idea. Yeah.
Yep. Great idea.
Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for being here tonight. And
We love having you, Rich. We'll do it again. We'll do the panel soon for Independence.
Real soon.
Okay, let me know. I'd be very interested.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. Good to
Peace.
see you, Snort. All right.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Talk to you soon. Good night.